Lexus NX has an available 14-inch touchscreen interface that's both elegant and intuitive, because the NX is engineered to understand you. Click the banner to discover more. Experience amazing at your Lexus dealer.
Sit in that pretty pink bag.
Good evening, everyone. I apologize for the delay, but I thank you for your patience. We will call this meeting to order. Ms. Henry, will you call the roll?
Ms. Sharma?
Here.
Ms. Alhajri?
Here.
Ms. Hubbard?
Here.
Ms. Hogan? Ms. Sonier? Ms. Vowell? Ms. Jones? Here. Ms. Cousins?
Yes.
Mr. Davis? We have a quorum.
Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We have a number of student and staff recognitions this evening. First, congratulations to Betty Wheeler Classical Junior Academy. On March 16th at 6 p.m., Betty Wheeler Classical Junior Academy and Principal Stephen Kyle Jefferson and the school team will host Betty Wheeler's family as we formally celebrate the renaming of the school. Ms. Wheeler was a remarkable educator, mother, and community leader. We want to thank the parents and the families and the school community for their work in getting us to this point with the name change and helping us usher in a new era of greatness. Please join the CJA Betty Wheeler family on Thursday night at Betty Wheeler CJA on Potomac Avenue. Another announcement, the 2023-2024 SLPS Budget Forum will take place in person tomorrow in this room, March 15th from 11 a.m. to 12 noon here at SLPS Central Office, that's 801 North 11th Street. The forum will be live streamed on the district's YouTube page for those who can't join us in person. This is your opportunity to impact next year's district budget. SLPS Chief Financial Officer Angie Banks will walk the community through the budget and address all outlying questions during the presentation. We also need your feedback on the budget. Visit www.slps.org/feedback and let us know your thoughts on the budget for next year. The Gateway First Robotics competition team competed in the St. Louis Regional Robotics Competition last weekend. When all was said and done, the team earned 7 out of a possible 11 wins and finished 6th out of 43 competing teams. Congratulations, team. We are proud of you. The Gateway's team is comprised of members from the following schools: Gateway STEM High School, Metro Classical and Academic High School, Collegiate School of Medicine and Bioscience, and Central Visual and Performing Arts High School. We saw a presentation, I think that was the last board meeting. So congratulations to our first robotics team. Next, Vashon basketball. Congratulations to the boys and girls basketball teams at Vashon High School. Over the weekend, both teams advanced to the Final Four of the Missouri State Basketball Tournament. The Vashon girls will take on the Southern Boone Eagles this Friday, March 17th, and the Vashon boys will be in action that day as they face off against Father Tolton Regional Catholic. So congratulations to the boys and girls teams at Vashon High School for making SLPS proud. One final announcement, at the municipal election in April, there will be a school board election for 2 board seats, and the Parent Action Committee will be hosting a forum on the 30th. It will be live streamed. Look for more details on SLPS social media. That will be on the 30th for a school board candidate forum. Dr. Williams.
Thank you very much. Mr. Davis, Board President Davis. So first, we'd like to take a moment this evening to acknowledge that it is School Board Recognition Month. The Missouri School Boards Association noted that we in the state of Missouri benefit every day from the dedicated energies and countless hours devoted by a group of men, more than 3,600 men and women from communities across the state. These public servants are elected by local constituents and do not receive compensation for their tireless efforts. They are the local school board members of Missouri. During the month of March, communities across the state will honor the dedicated service of their local boards of education during School Board Recognition Month. The goal is to build awareness and understanding of the important function an elected Board of Education plays in communities and schools. All Missouri citizens are asked to recognize the important contributions of these men and women and focus attention on the vital role these public officials play in the education of Missouri's children. We would like to take a moment this evening to recognize the dedicated service of our 7 school board members. We have student scholars recognizing their commitment. So Ms. Van Noy, please play our board recognition video.
One, two, three.
Happy School Board Appreciation Week. Thank you for all you do for our schools.
And I know it might be tough to make decisions like y'all have to make, but thank you so much. And this comes from me. Thank you.
Thank you, School Board, for all you do.
One, two, three.
Wait, are you about to put that on YouTube?
Yeah, it is gonna be on our YouTube.
I want to take a moment and thank the Office of Institutional Advancement, Carl Mitchell, our Deputy Superintendent, Lori Willis, and all of the team members. I know Carl and the team, they were very intentional about going out and getting our young scholars to say some words in recognition of our board. So let's give our board a rousing round of applause, please, this evening. Once again, we thank you for your service. I do want to take a moment this evening and talk about the power of pre-K. SLPS is now enrolling our preschool students, 3 and 4-year-olds, and to kick it off, our marketing team is running a campaign called The Power of Pre-K. We have billboards, radio and television commercials, and print ads encouraging our parents in the city of St. Louis to sign up for preschool.
St. Louis Public School.
I know you're ready to roll it. Just give me a moment. I just want to finish this last sentence. We know research shows that high-quality pre-K programs benefit children in ways that last well into high school. So we are excited to share the work that we're doing around encouraging our parents to enroll our students here in pre-K, here in the St. Louis Public Schools. Ms. Van Noy?
St. Louis Public Schools gives you the power of pre-K. It's the power to push to the head of the class in reading and math. It's the power to get quality instruction from a certified teacher every day, all day.
They also get nap time.
It's the power to give your child a head start in social and emotional development. And it's the power to discover that learning is just a lot of fun. St. Louis Public Schools gives you the power of pre-K for free. Go to slps.org/pre-K for more information. St. Louis Public Schools.
Thank you. It's the power of pre-K. So we look forward to welcoming our 3 and 4-year-olds into St. Louis Public Schools. This week is Parent-Teacher Conference Week, and so we hope that all parents have received information regarding parent-teachers conferences at your child's school site. Please take time to visit with your child to make sure that you are having an engaging conversation around the work that's happening in every classroom across our school district. So thank you very much, parents, for your partnership and support. We are moving into spring break beginning on Friday the 17th, and so that this will be a week where all of our teachers, our students, our staff members will have an opportunity to really celebrate and acknowledge spring break. We hope that you'll rest, relax, and replenish. We'll welcome everyone back on the 27th. And finally, we have a Spring Into Fitness. Please mark your calendars. Our second Spring Into Fitness 5K and Fun Run will take place on April 29th at Ashland Elementary School from 9 a.m. until noon. In addition to the races, there will be Zumba and yoga and family friend entertainment. If you have questions about this event, you can visit our website or contact our SLPS parent liaison, Gloria Nolan, by calling 314-345-2485. Once again, we thank you, parents. You are our partners. We thank you for trusting us each and every day with the young scholars that we serve from pre-K through grade 12. We say every scholar, every day in every classroom, delivering on the promise of a high-quality education for our children. And so this evening, in our spirit of excellence, I'd like to welcome McKinley CLA sophomore Leah Scott. Let's bring her up with a rousing round of applause. I know Mom is here, Principal Kaylin Holloway, the principal of McKinley. Our teacher is here this evening as well, and I want to make sure that we recognize Ms. Nubling. So Leah Scott is a sophomore at McKinley Classical Leadership Academy and has been an active member of choir since 6th grade. She also participates in the musicals at McKinley and appeared in Little Shop of Horrors, Singing in the Rain, and was recently in Donna in the 2023 production of Mamma Mia. In addition, Leah is an honor roll student, a member of the McKinley tennis team, and will be part of the upcoming play Clue at McKinley. Leah studies privately through the Opera Theater, St. Louis Artist and Training Program, where she will compete in April for scholarship money. Tonight, Leah will perform The Winner Takes It All from Mamma Mia. Thank you, Leah, for being here this evening.
I don't want to talk about the things we've gone through, though it's hurting me. Now it's history. I've played all my cards, and that's what you've done too. Nothing more to say, no more ace to play. The winner takes it all, the loser standing small beside the victory. That's her destiny. I was in your arms, thinking I belonged there. I figured it made sense, building me a fence, building me a home, thinking I'd be strong there, but I was a fool, playing by the rules. The gods may throw a dice, their minds as cold as ice, and someone way down here loses someone dear. The winner takes it all, the loser has to fall. It's simple and it's plain. Why should I complain? But tell me, does she kiss like I used to kiss you? Does it feel the same when she calls your name? Somewhere deep inside, you must know I miss you. But what can I say? Rules must be obeyed. The judges will decide. The likes of me abide. Spectators of the show, always staying low. The game is on again. A lover or a friend, a big thing or a small, the winner takes it all. I don't want to talk I don't want to talk 'cause it makes me feel sad, and I understand. You've come to shake my hand. I apologize if it makes you feel bad seeing me so tense. No self-confidence. But you see, the winner takes it all. The winner takes it all. The game is on again. A lover or a friend, a big thing or a small. The winner takes it all. The winner takes it all.
Absolutely beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Thank you so much. Beautiful. The winner takes it all. That's what we have here in St. Louis Public Schools. We are focused on winning for every scholar, every day, in every classroom. I do want to take a moment and thank Leah once again. Let's give her another rousing round of applause. I want to thank her family for being here, Mom and Dad. And I do want to thank Kay Harrelson, who is our coordinator for performing arts, and our Director of Professional Development, Letitia Smith, Dr. Letitia Smith. I want to thank them because they make sure every month we have our young scholars performing, bringing their talents and sharing their talents with our board and our community. So thank you very much. I'd like to continue the work that we're doing as part of the superintendent's presentations this evening. We have a presentation from Dr. Smith Jr., our Deputy Superintendent for Academics, and our Network Superintendent for High Schools, Dr. Crystal Gale, and I see our principals from 2 of our comprehensive high schools here as well. I'm going to turn it over to both of them to begin the presentation on comprehensive high schools.
All right, I appreciate that. So good evening, Board President Davis, Vice President Cousins, Board Directors, Interim Superintendent Williams, and SLPS community. Again, I'm Dr. Marion Smith Jr., Deputy Superintendent of Academics, joined by Network Superintendent Dr. Crystal Gale of Learning Network 4. And so as we look at the agenda today, I'll provide you with an overview and update on comprehensive support high schools in the district. So more specifically, you will hear about the work, the resources, and supports happening in the district from 3 different levels. Level 1 will be at the academic office level, level 2 will be at the network level, and level 3 will be at the individual school level. We'll begin by explaining the state classification and definition of a comprehensive school. Next, we'll highlight the tiered supports offered by the academic office across its 13 different departments. And then Dr. Gale will then speak to the comprehensive school designation at the district level before providing an overview of the comprehensive school goals being tracked as a network. You'll then have an opportunity to hear about what's happening in each comprehensive high school, Roosevelt, Sumner, and Vashon, as it relates to the network goals being tracked. And we will end our time together by sharing next steps as we build upon the work and the work that's happening, and open the floor for any questions you may have. As Dr. Williams mentioned, we have 2 of our 3 comprehensive school leaders in the room, so they may be able to answer any specific questions as well. And so I begin with the DESE definition of comprehensive schools using the noted criteria as written on the slide. And so a comprehensive school is defined as a school which is among the lowest 5% of schools receiving Title I funds, or is a high school with an average 4-year adjusted cohort graduation rate less than 67% over a period of 3 years. And so the complete list of our comprehensive schools identified are at the bottom of this particular slide. In bold are the comprehensive identified schools with one exception, that's Carnahan. If you remember, Carnahan continues its transition from a traditional grade 9 through 12 school to a traditional grade 6 through 8 middle school, which began this school year. So as a result, Carnahan will not be included in this presentation this evening. It is important to note that the state comprehensive classification was assigned in 2019, but since then a few things have happened that continue to inform how we as a district look at the original comprehensive designation. And so a few things. In 2019, there was a new grade level and end of course exam in science. In 2020, statewide assessments were canceled due to COVID-19. In 2021, our new end-of-course assessments were administered, but the results were not used for accountability due to COVID. And in 2022, the annual performance report is the first under the new MSIP 6, so our Missouri School Improvement Program. So all of that's impacting how we're engaging in this particular work. And so the first level of supports to our comprehensive schools comes from the academic office. So these supports are provided in 3 tiers to enable schools to have the supports needed to address district-wide learning and teaching priorities. Those 3 priorities, we refer to them as quote-unquote the work of the academic office since 21-22, are actually noted on the slide. So tier 1 is foundational supports, and that's all about how do we strengthen the instructional core through our key 3 and the core 4. Key 3 being our depth of knowledge questioning, planning with data, and checking for understanding formative assessments, and the core 4 represents the core 4 subject areas, math, science, social studies, and English. Tier 2 is a targeted support provided to deepen school staff knowledge, skills, and effectiveness to use multiple sources of data. So how are we using qualitative data, quantitative data, perceptual data to inform our decision making, right? Moving away from this is how we've always done it to what does the data actually reveal. And then tier 3 is individual supports that we're providing to our schools around applying those quote unquote best we know right now practices. So those could be research-based practices, they could be evidence-based practices, or they could be promising practices. So what does that look like when we offer that from the academic office? And so of the tiered supports provided by the academic office, this slide highlights and spotlights 4 core areas that you'll hear a little bit about. 1 is academics, number 2 is academic instructional coaches, number 3 is school culture and climate, and number 4 is professional development. And you'll hear a little bit from our network superintendent, Dr. Gale, how this is playing out in each one of those comprehensive schools. And so with that, I'll turn it over to my colleague, Dr. Gale, just to walk us through our comprehensive supports in our schools. Dr. Gale.
Thank you. Good evening, and thank you guys for asking us to speak a little bit about the work that's happening in the comprehensive high schools. Dr. Smith Jr. talked about the comprehensive designation. He also talked about, okay, there we go. So he talked about the comprehensive designation from the state perspective. I think it's important that we also discuss or just note that these schools are also comprehensive high schools internally from our own kind of designation, meaning that Roosevelt, Sumner, and Vashon are all neighborhood schools. So we have Magnet, we have Choice, we have neighborhood schools. Roosevelt, Sumner, and Vashon do not interview the students who attend. Students who attend do not apply for those schools. They accept everyone in their attendance boundary, and those are all the students that we support. Each comprehensive school has a goal. And so each school has 3 goals. The first goal is in the area of leadership. The second goals are in the area of academics, and so that's ELA and math. The leadership goal is always to retain 80% of the staff in the building. The high school English and math goals are always to increase the student scoring proficient by 10%. The schools have been designated comprehensive for approximately, I guess, 3 years. Over the course of the 3 years, the goals do not change, and so we design plans and develop plans with strategies and appropriate priorities to make sure that we can implement things for these goals. So each school, when they are designated comprehensive, they receive funding. What this slide here discusses or shows the strategies that we've used or the plans that we've put in place for each of the schools. You'll notice that there are additional staffing that's provided for the schools. Each school also has upgraded technology. We have provided intervention programs in each one of the schools, as well as each leader participates in professional learning through the MLDS cohort. A special thing to note, when we came together and talked about the work that we needed to do for comprehensive high schools, we thought about, we do a needs assessment. We pull the team together to determine, what our next moves need to be to really kind of close that gap for students. Things we decided what we needed was a dropout prevention specialist, and we also knew that we needed additional instructional staff. We knew that we needed these things because we needed to be able to have people in the building who were not afraid to try to help kids overcome different barriers and obstacles that were getting in the way of instruction. The dropout prevention specialist position was designed to report to the building principal, to provide any kind of support needs, to do home visits, do daily check-ins and things like that. the additional instructional staff that was provided was put in place to try to shrink, again, those class sizes a little bit and also provide additional interventions for students, whether it be pull-out or even providing core instruction. So we'll transition a little bit to take a bit of a deeper dive into some of the strategies and how we're actually implementing the plan in these specific schools. You'll notice a couple things. The strategies that I pulled out of the plans really focus on two areas. One area is professional development. The other area is answering the question around how do we create the best environment for academic achievement for students. So while the strategies look really similar throughout the three different schools, you'll notice that that's what we have to do. The how is the area around implementation, and so that's going to look a little bit different because each one of the schools is extremely unique. So the first spotlight we're going to take a look at is Roosevelt. Roosevelt's leader is not here tonight, but Ms. Dancy had a very clear vision for her school around wanting to improve professional learning, and also wanting to put in place standards-based instructional practices in her building. So some of the strategies the way we implemented those strategies, Roosevelt participates in the Ed Plus standards-based learning, professional development. They've done that for the last 2 years. They host a instructional leadership academy every summer for the last 2 years as well. Their team participates in weekly data team meetings. We do co-planning with the curriculum team where we have come in and do observations and do co-planning. They have a supplemental English language arts teacher as well to provide instruction, and they have data design units. Okay. So let me go back. So some of the evidence of impact. What we've seen from the strategies that we put in place at Roosevelt, the perception data around the learning experiences has increased. Our ninth graders have shown some growth from their CFA to CFA data. Ms. Dancy had a true vision around implementing and really encouraging student voice in her school. And so because of that, in October, she wanted to host a student leadership camp at Sherwood Forest. And so she was able to host an inaugural camp there using her comprehensive funds as well as support from the St. Louis Public Schools Foundation. And then also, again, the quality of the feedback and professional learning from our Panorama survey data showed some real improvements. So the next school we'll spotlight is Sumner. Sumner's principal, Dr. Sean Nichols, is actually here. Again, you'll notice that Sumner's strategies focus on increasing professional learning experiences that are culturally relevant for students, as well as utilizing research-based strategies for instruction. At Sumner, they have targeted professional development. Sumner also has small group check-ins with their dropout prevention specialists and their PBIS staff. They're designing a student recovery room for students to be able to come in and kind of decompress and talk through different issues. Sumner also, you remember, has the arts pathway, and so they have arts integrated classes in their school. They've done a lot of professional learning and professional development with that team as well. Sumner's teachers participate in bi-weekly data teams. They have different tutoring services that are available for kids, as well as they have a supplemental ELA teacher. Evidence of impact for Sumner, their ninth grade students showed a 20% growth from their CFAs this year. Sumner's actually shown a 13% increase in their enrollment from fall 2021 to 2022. And the students, when we looked at the attendance for the students in the arts pathways for first semester, we showed a 10% increase, those students' attendance was 10% higher than students in non-arts pathways. So we've seen that the kids in the arts pathways at Sumner really enjoy it. They really want to be there, and it's kind of incentivizing them to come to school a little bit more. So the last school we'll spotlight is Vashon. Vashon's focus, a little bit different around professional development. Their PD focus is around instruction and also management. And then again, you'll see again their instructional focus being around academic interventions, right? So what that looks like at Vashon, Vashon's participating in the CT3 No Nonsense Nurture training this year. They do a lot of co-planning, again, with sessions with school leadership and the district leaders as well. They're engaging in a book study. They have their own site-based advisory curriculum to support students in their building. They provide small group interventions via their supplemental ELA teacher. She also does pull-out instruction. And they have reading classes for students at the freshman and sophomore level. They are participating in Double Dose to increase academic instructional time for students as well. So evidence of impact for Vashon. Vashon actually has a 51% decrease in their suspensions over the last 2 years. That is important because at Vashon at the end of last school year, and again, Principal Smith is actually here and can speak more to this, At Vashon last school year, when we looked at the school culture data, the discipline data, we noticed that Vashon had over 500 suspensions. Of those 500 suspensions that they had, 80% of those suspensions came from only 30% of the students in the building. Those students were repeaters, so that means that they had been suspended multiple times. And so what we did was we took a look at the data to kind of narrow down our focus. Ms. Smith spent a lot of time this summer reworking, rethinking her leadership, her culture team in her building, to the point where they ensured that they had a team of people to support each student at each grade level and make sure that teachers had the support that they needed as well. Vashon's Panorama results showed an increase in the quality of feedback as well in coaching. We've seen academic growth from in their CFAs to CSA data for 14%. And we've also seen a 50-point Lexile growth for the students in their 9th and 10th grade. So the work in the comprehensive high school is not easy. We are constantly trying to fix problems. We're constantly trying to figure out how to close the achievement gap for students, and the leaders are constantly coming up with new approaches to learning and new approaches to addressing those issues. What do we need? So we still have a lot of different challenges, but we're still very much willing and ready to do this work. Staff comes in every day ready to take on this challenge. Some of the challenges, though, are that we need more qualified instructional staff. All of these schools have several vacancies, Vashon as well as Roosevelt. The funding for next year has not been determined. So this is the last year for comprehensive funding. The additional positions that we do have right now that are helping us with the interventions and the behavior supports, we may or may not be able to continue to staff those because we don't know just yet who DESE is going to designate as comprehensive for next year. Another challenge, the transportation was a huge issue at the beginning of the school year. As the board knows, the district removed transportation from a number of schools. Vashon, Sumner, and Roosevelt were 3 of the high schools that were impacted by that. And while parents initially were really supportive and continue to be very supportive, honestly, because they wanted to get their kids to school and understood the need of our education, it really was weighing on. It was very taxing and it weighed on them. Another thing that we need a lot of support with right now that continues to be a challenge are community issues surrounding our schools. Sumner sits in the middle of the Ville, Vashon is in the JVL. Both have their own complex issues just as a community. And it's important for the community, for the board and the community to understand that all of those issues kind of spill right back over into the school, and our leaders are faced with those kind of challenges and having to deal with those and mitigate that in addition to trying to get into classrooms and things of that nature. But we're continuing to the commitment, right? So we're going to continue with the feedback and coaching that's provided by the school staff and the district team. We're going to continue to support behavior interventions and provide individualized support in all of our areas, reading and math specifically. Smith?
And then one final piece that we wanted to go over, I think it's critically important what Dr. Gale just mentioned is we have to work within the parameters that we're given, right? So most of us have played a sport, most of us have seen a sport, and sometimes the referee makes a really bad call, right? And you know that was a foul, you know that was out, but they still have to keep playing, right? And so that's what we continue to do as we work with our comprehensive schools based on a lot of the things that are outside of our control, but we move forward. And so one of the things that I wanted to highlight is just our next steps. And so the so what, now what, specifically in this particular space. And so of the lessons learned in speaking with school leaders, reviewing our student data, growth data and achievement data, and thinking beyond just those historical practices that have happened over the last few years as a district, a next step has been identified that will build upon our current work in progress, and it's called Powerless to Powerful. And so just a little bit about this. So Powerless to Powerful is a leadership framework for implementing a multi-tiered system of support. It is a system of thinking and behaviors that transform schools through education leaders. And so the Powerless to Powerful approach is anchored in 4 research-based practices that have been shown to provide success systemically to impact transforming low-performing schools. And so the system and approach was first implemented at a high school in Sunnyside, Washington. So Sunnyside, when it first started, had a graduation rate of 49%. When this approach was first introduced. 4 years later, the graduation rate was at 85%, and right before the pandemic in 2020, the graduation rate was approaching 90%. A few demographics about this particular high school: 2,000 students, 92% Latino, 25% ELL, 78% free and reduced lunch, and 12% special education. And so those approaches aren't novel concepts, right? They're just an opportunity for us to bring a systematic approach to how we move this work forward from a research-based and evidence-based approach that anchors it in 4 areas. Number 1 is leadership. So how do we create purpose and relational trust to engage staff and students? The second is collaboration, which would be a little bit new for us. It's about practices that involve staff and actual action research around improving teaching and learning. The third is the support system. We've heard the board talk about when we think about our transformation plan 4.0, how do we make sure that we're working across the different departments? And so area 3 is all around integrated support systems when we think about behavior, achievement, social emotional supports. And then lastly, the 4th one is data. So how do we bring the evidence-based approaches and processes so that we can actually monitor in real time the practices that we're putting into place? And so more to come on this particular next step as we wrap our arms around, or we continue to wrap our arms around our comprehensive schools, focusing on what I shared a little bit earlier. We work within the confines that we're in, continuing to try to find new and creative ways. When the referee, whomever that may be, may make a bad call, we still focus on our scholars. And so with that, we'll open it up for any questions, knowing that we do have 2 of our comprehensive school leaders here, Dr. Gale and myself. Thank you.
Questions from the board? Ms. Jones.
My first question is, after the last paragraph, was this P2P, power to power? Is that?
Powerless to powerful.
Okay, so I'm trying to understand how the power to power would work, because I'm thinking you're trying to help the staff to become more powerful in the way that they relate with the students?
Well, as I said, it's anchored in 4 specific areas, right? And so not talking about the title of the transformation, it is just understanding how do we have, in a way, this year we're working on the concept called pedagogy of confidence, the research from Yvette Jackson that talks about, do teachers, do staff members, does everyone in the school believe that they have what is necessary to ensure that all of our scholars learn at high levels? And so this particular research implemented in this one particular school that showed great success in increasing graduation rates talked about 4 key areas that need to be in place systemically. So it was the leadership, it was the connections, it was the data, it was the action research. So it's bringing that to our comprehensive schools, wrapping ourselves around them with these tried and true approaches, and then being able to support them moving that work forward. So the name itself is from powerless to powerful, but the research behind it is anchored in those 4 key areas that have been shown to work across a variety of different schools.
Okay. So when you speak with the students, because I guess my main concern is about the students first, because so many of them feel powerless and don't feel like they have a voice. And so I guess I'm just trying to understand how this concept would empower the student first. Because if you don't feel confident, they're not going to communicate what they need to the staff. And so many times, so many of our students are overlooked. They're not coming to school. They're not getting their needs met. And that's what I see just as somebody standing outside of the school and or looking at the students in our community right now, the things that are going on with crime and what have you. Clearly, our students don't feel like their voices are being heard. And many of the students, just say, for instance, like Vashon, I live on the other side of Highway 70, and there is no high school. And if the transportation that you mentioned is down, then how do they even get to school? And they have to go through other areas where other students have gangs or whatever the case might be. So help me understand how you are empowering the students through the surveys or what have you to feel like they have a voice, because my understanding right now is that the students don't feel like they really are important or that they have a voice. From the crime statistics and everything else that's going on. I mean, I know we're talking, you know, in professional terms about what you're doing and what have you, but the real facts are our kids are dying quite frequently on the street.
No, absolutely. And so I wouldn't be the appropriate person to speak to what that looks like in the school setting. And so I can defer that to our school leaders of how we're using Panorama survey data to be able to make those decisions of what's happening in the classroom. And so I could defer to our school leaders that may be here to talk about what does that look like specifically, because the conversation, I want to make sure that we are truly focused on what's happening specifically in the schools to address your question. So how are they using that information to create those experiences? And the best people to be able to speak to that are those that are in the schools each and every day, because to Dr. Gale's point, they are doing that, right? And so we're being able to say, how can we rev that up with additional resources and supports to ensure that we're meeting all of those particular needs at high levels? And so I can defer to my colleagues here to talk about what is happening in the 2 schools that we do have school leaders present for.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm real tall, so hold on. My name is Brenda Smith, and I am the principal at Vashon High School. And unfortunately, these are a lot of our babies when I hear the question being asked, and so we are trying many different approaches. One of the big visions that I have for Vashon is that every kid comes to school and has an adult that they see every day. I know in high school we're on block schedules, but it's really important for me that our kids see that adult every day. And so this is why we created kind of the advisory, so that every kid feels connected to somebody and they see that advisor every single day. The next thing that we're doing in our house system, again, is just making sure that the people who deal with the students every day are the ones that know them firsthand. It is one thing to be a freshman and you have teachers all over the building who you don't necessarily know and you got to move from place to place, versus having a group of people that support you every day. So they know now if they're in trouble, they can go see Mr. McKinney. If they're a 9th grader, they know that there are people right there that support them. Other supports go all the way from, unfortunately, we recently lost a student, but I still have his therapy bag in my room. And so you meet this student, brilliant mind, face full of tattoos, into the world. We've written this type of student off. But to me, he comes in, we sit, we talk, we journal. He has an actual coloring book. And when he's having a bad day, he comes in and he sits and he just colors on the corner of my desk. And so what we pride ourselves on is getting to know each and every one of our students and some of the issues they face so that we can provide them with the right supports. So that we can help them and provide an environment. We try to keep the building open as long as possible. Unfortunately, if you ever drive by Vashon, there's always going to be cars there because we try to find activities for the students to do in the evening, late in the evening, when they don't really have anything to do. We also work really hard to provide job opportunities for our students within the community. They work with construction companies, and our kids really love the K-Life program. And so the K-Life vans picks them up in the afternoon. If they're not, athletes find a natural space in Vashon, but we want all of our students to do that. And then the last thing I'll say is we found a new interest in art. It is something new that I've seen our kids really get involved in. And even we have a display at the Contemporary Art Museum right now where students, when I went and saw the names, I was almost shocked because these are students that you typically wouldn't think would be sitting here drawing self-portraits of themselves or creating stories. And so I guess our approach, I would say, is to try to reach every single kid where they're needed and having the right adults to connect with those kids when I can't grab them all.
All right, good evening, everyone. Sean Nichols, principal of Sumner High School and Fresh Start. What we've developed at our school to provide voices for our kids, we've actually created a pod system. And in that pod system, we've partnered at least 7 adults with every student in the building. And so what we do is a lot of those adults would come up with questions, and we put those questions inside of the survey data. And what we do is have our staff on a weekly basis collect data from all of our students. And what we do is look at that data and see what the needs are. Based on those needs, once we get those needs, we try to execute some of those things. For example, we have kids that say that, hey, look, we don't have clothes, we don't have washers and dryers. So what we do is collect that data, and we have our social worker, dropout coach, any of these support staff members that have that are experts in those areas. We use our support staff to execute based on what the needs are. So we try to utilize all of those different voices from kids and families just to see what we can do to support families, because we know we can't just say you don't want to come to school. But a lot of people are in transition. A lot of my kids are in transitions. Some of them, they're babysitting. Many of them are working. So we try to do everything we can to support them, and instead of just really just looking down on them or looking at them in a certain way that they're not really interested in school. So that system has been working for us. So we still have not been able to get everybody to school like we want, but being able to collect that data and provide resources to all of our students, the POS system seems to be working and is helping to build relationships with all of our teachers. So, and it allows our teachers to get to know them and become advocates. So help using that system to help our teachers become advocates, and they build those relationships with those 6 to 7 students. That has helped us a lot. So it has turned our teachers into advocates instead of just saying, hey, look, these kids don't want to come to school, but hey, they're there coming to us saying, hey, look, my kid is not coming to school because we don't have this, we don't have that. We need to execute this to help them and do that. So I really like seeing that from my team.
Excuse me, I had a question for you. So at your
Yes,
school,
ma'am.
do you have entrepreneurship opportunities? Because so many of our students are economically challenged, and you talked about the need for this or the need for that. And I guess I'm really concerned when our students get to the high school level, many of them are tired of school because they have so many needs in that area. So I understand the pod system and that kind of thing, but entrepreneurship, what does that look like at your school?
Well, right now, that is evolving. We've just developed that relationship with the St. Louis Development Corporation. So I just met with them last week, and we've come up with a system where they have actually started to work with 16 to 24-year-old students, and they are actually providing jobs for any of my students. So right now, we're trying to get the word out to all of our parents, and so many of our students are really interested in working, but many of them don't. We just try to charge them in working in areas that they want to work in, because many kids are not into fast foods. Some students want to work in air conditioning, where they don't want to do, they may not want to work around a lot of people. So I partner with them to see what we can do to develop that, where those businesses can provide some type of support around helping students understand what they want to do around developing their business, because some of our students, they have businesses, they want to develop businesses. So I'm working with them to evolve that, to see what that looks like for teenagers. We have not gotten to that level. Right now, we're just working with trying to transition my families into helping to get resources for North St. Louis, what can they do to get jobs for their families, and extend opportunities for their kids and resources like that. So we're trying to evolve that. We haven't gotten to that level yet, so we're just working with adults at this point. So I hope that answers.
I want to ask about attendance, and this is for anybody, because it seems to be a struggle. And I look at numbers like for proportional attendance, 16%, 20%, all the way down to 12%. I guess my first question is, on a bad day, what percentage of the kids are even there?
Say it again. 88. 75, 80%. And your question is why we have a lot of kids not wanting to come to school. Is that the question?
Yeah, I guess I'll ask a two-part question. So one, why is the attendance rate so low? And then second, how do we track that? What do we do about it?
That's a great question. So let me tell you what we're doing. We talk to our kids, and right now we are competing with a lot of employers out there. I talked to 2 of my seniors today. They work at, I don't want to name the particular organization. I don't want to, put that organization out there, but they are paying my kids. I think he's making $19 an hour. They're making $19 an hour. And so they're working overtime. And so he explained to me that on a weekly basis, he's making almost $1,800 working overtime. And so at the end of the month, he's making close to close to about $6,000. And he told me, look, why do I need to get a high school diploma when I can work at Walmart and get $16 and $18 an hour working overtime? And so I partner with I'm working with a local church, and I met with the pastor, the bishop, the other day, and I asked the bishop to, and right now we're trying to establish an MOU where they can actually go in and work and work with my families to see what we can do to encourage students to come back to school instead of working all the time, because I don't feel comfortable going inside of an employer, because many of my kids have support from their families. So look, the parents want them to work, and I'm not fighting with income. So we want to find a bridge so we can help lure our kids back to school, as well as going into be able to provide for your families. So right now I'm seeing kids working and making a lot of money that I haven't seen before from many of my high school kids. So being able to get them to come to school, and they're working all these hours, it's really become challenging for many of them to come to school every day.
Well,
and this is something I've seen after the pandemic. So, Go ahead.
I was just going to add, definitely second a lot of the things my colleagues said, but also noticing that we are losing students to conflict. Especially conflict in the community. And so right now I've been looking, I got one particular student that we've been looking for almost 2 weeks now. We're calling the parent. When we finally get her on the phone, the parent tells us he's scared to come to school because of this conflict. And one parent says she moved her child out of town, but is not enrolling him in school. And so we are having some issues with the conflict that parents are keeping kids away. And then the next thing I'll say is we're definitely looking for more engaging classroom strategy. So we recently recreated our CTE survey and sent it out to all of our students, because a lot of the world competes. So we know jobs compete, we know the violence competes, we know medical issues compete, but we also know that students have to have a want to come to school. And everybody for us, again, I keep saying this, are not athletes, and so how can we strengthen our CTE programs to be programs that our students want to participate in and love? The question was asked about entrepreneurship, and we have so many students that actually have businesses. So we do this thing called Leadership Fridays, where we let them set up their companies. We talk to them about their promotional materials. We have young ladies that sell eyelashes. We have a barber. We have a clothing. So we try to give them these opportunities, but we want to be able to provide classes inside of the building. Our kids love Vashon. When I say, hey, Beaumont is there, come on, you all, let's do Beaumont, they're like, no, we want to be here. And so how can we create those classes that also help engage our kids? I think it would have a great impact on attendance.
I have kind of like, I'm sorry.
Really?
I just kind of have like a practical question, though. Okay, so say you have 25, 50, 100 kids absent, and they're absent multiple days, and that's realistic, right?
Yep.
According to this data, that's common. You don't have the staff, you don't have the social workers, you don't have the adults to spend the time to track down, I'm making an assumption, but to track down those kids and have that level of interaction with every family, right? Like you don't have the ability to say like, okay, well maybe I can get you into this community member and maybe we can help find some support so you can come to school and you can put off working. Or, because of the conflict, that's an incredibly complicated situation, and I would imagine that would take a very trained person a long time to sort of unravel that. I mean, if you've got dozens, of kids having that, how do you navigate that with the resources that you have?
Again, we work towards it every day because we see their faces every day. Right now, we have every available staff member has a set of 10 of our kids who have attendance issues who can actually make it. We know that it's about 17 days, that once you hit those 17 days, there's no talking about 90-90 anymore. But we've kind of looked at our kids, separated them that way, and we call, if we don't see them, we call them on a regular basis. We contact the families. We do have an issue with a lot of numbers. When kids go missing, the numbers stop working. And so my full service schools coordinator does a really good job of going to houses. I visit houses, but you're right. We can do so much with the staff that we have, but we're always needing more because our students always need more.
So have you ever put together this is for both of you and Dr. Gale, a proposal to say, listen, in our ideal world, we need this many social workers, we need another, another family community specialist, we need another dropout coordinator in order to manage this problem, because, 12%, we're, as a district, fast on the road to losing accreditation. If we, under what the referee is saying, if we cannot get a handle on this attendance issue. I take it by your silence that that's a no, that we've never put together like the big ask.
Never the big acts. We've had smaller acts. We've been asking for, I know one of our big needs is just therapy. We've been asking for therapy for a really, really long time, and we run into issues of staff shortages and not really being able to find therapists. We can get the allocation, but we can't find the therapists. That would even be helpful for a lot of our students. So if we have not put together the dream plan, but we have made asks of these different things.
Because I look at your data too, just a minute, she's so excited. Your data too, you've got, listed on the DESE data, 40% of your kids are classified as homeless. And if you listen to Dr. Deidre Thomas Murray, that will always be a low number. And the level of interventions, I can imagine those kids, because you're going to have mobility rates, so they may not be coming to school because they're gone. So, I think the big ask is concrete in data, that there's the need there to support it just in the numbers. But I guess my other question, maybe this is for you, Dr. Gale, at what point do we unenroll these kids that we know that they're not coming back? Because it seems like there's a lot of kids who, 15, 17 days, maybe they've made the decision with their family, they're just going to work. When do we make that decision, and how do we make that decision? And what are the implications if we do?
So I'm going to ask Ms. Vannoy to kind of talk us through a little bit of that. The one part of that I can answer for you, though, is that the implications are a dropout rate. Right? So when we unenroll students, they hit us on our dropout rate. So when you look at our APR, it's either going to hit us on attendance or dropout. We have to kind of pick the lesser of two evils, because oftentimes we cannot manage both.
Really? Ms. Bonet. Dr. Gale's completely correct. It also impacts our graduation rate. So the dropout is an annual percentage, but the graduation is a cohort percentage. So while we may not see it go down right away, we will see it go down over the 3, 4, 5 years.
But I guess what I'm struggling with, if they've dropped out, right? If they're not coming to school, can we just make the assumption that they've dropped out? Now, I know that there's a criteria there. They can come and say, you know what, I've got a job, I'm not coming back. That seems like a dropout, right?
It is a dropout
Okay.
because they haven't transferred to another institution.
But then if we don't have good numbers, it's been weeks, we can't find them, do we still keep them enrolled?
We do at this point, but what I will say that when we do the official membership count day on the last Wednesday in September and the last Wednesday in January, we do not get credit for those students because they weren't in attendance for 10 preceding days.
And then we get hit on the attendance rate.
And then we get hit on the attendance rate, which is worth 4 points.
Can I go now? I think Emily had some questions.
Ms. Hubbard.
I just want to say I only had 25% of my college class come today, so y'all aren't the only ones. My first question is, so these schools have always been comprehensive schools, and then 3 years ago, or the state said, okay, this is what comprehensive means to us.
So Sumner, Vashon, and Roosevelt have always been neighborhood high schools. And so in our district, at a high school level, we call our neighborhood high schools comprehensive high schools too. We've had several iterations of additionally state-designated low-performing schools. Years ago, they were called SIG. We had SIG schools. I was actually a SIG principal back in 2010. We've had that, and then most recently, they've called them comprehensive schools, but they're designated as the 5% lowest performing in the state.
Okay. And so really, all of this is a function of poverty and the holdover of generations of systemic racism. And it's not your job to fix. It's a really big job. The responsibility doesn't rest solely on y'all's shoulders. And, you know, it sounds like the new standards are not geared to really measure what goes on in an urban school district. Okay, so that was my first question. So when I hear comprehensive or neighborhood, I guess we need to be clear about our terms, because when I hear a comprehensive school, I think that's a school that has every subject, every depth of subject. And, you know, Dr. Williams told us that Roosevelt only has 2 kinds of math. Do we have staff for, how many positions, staff positions are not filled? How many positions do you have funding for that aren't filled? How can we get, are we doing new training and new ideas every year, and then there's teachers that quit mid-semester? How much of how sticky are these schools?
They're very, very sticky. Okay. The vacancy question I'd have to check with HR on. The question about are we doing new training every year and then basically the staff is turning over, the answer is yes. Every year we have vacancies. I know Roosevelt right now has 3 ILAs in their math department. They do offer more than 2 sections or 2 different courses of mathematics, but the challenge with that is that they're not all taught by a certificated teacher. Vashon has a couple ILAs, and again, that's not a neighborhood school issue. That's a state of education issue, right? Like there are teacher shortages everywhere. But that does not support the teaching and learning that we need to take place to close the gap for our students, some of the most marginalized students in the city. Yeah. Any other questions from the board?
I'm sorry, I was making sure Emily was.
I think I'm done.
First, I want to commend the principals. This is definitely a challenging job for you guys, and I don't want it to be presented as if we're coming after you guys or any of you all as staff members, but we're just trying to get a clear understanding of what the challenges you guys are facing and how do we as board members assist in whatever challenges you guys are dealing with. When I'm looking at this report or the presentation that you provided, I see the Tier 2, you stated that it was to provide knowledge for the staff and their skills and research evidence, research evidence for Tier 3. So I was taking notes with some of the things you guys were saying, as well as listening to some of the challenges that you have. I think my question is, where are we with the dropout prevention specialists? Like what are you doing with the information that they provide to you once it comes back as to how you're looking and what factors are? Some of the issues you said, I'm hearing you say, was that, you know, one kid didn't come back because of the conflict that's going on at school. One kid for you, Dr. Nichols, was because the job, you know, they had a job that paid more, you know, was more fulfilling for them to work or what have you. What are we doing with all that data? Because that's not all of our students that we see are not there. Do you have enough drop-off prevention specialists? Are they able to attain and get the information that we need, that you all need, to be able to move in a different direction as to how you're able to assist the families and the children? One thing you said, Dr. Nichols, that is so true, and we have to understand that we can't look at education as we used to look at education. We have to think outside the box, and most of that box consists of working with the mom, the dad, the uncle, you know, the stepdad, anybody that's in that household to get that kid back to school. So are we using or taking that information that we're getting from that specialist and doing something with it? That's my first question.
So we actually don't have our dropout prevention specialist anymore. We lost ours at the end of last school year. And just trying to fill the role throughout the year. We've had a couple of people who did not meet the qualifications in terms of applying for it. So we have not had one this year, but that type of work has been done by like our full service coordinator and our social worker. So when we get that information, we're going to the houses, we drop off food, we invite the families when they have needs that we can fix. Some of those needs we just can't fix, and I'm not sure if the dropout prevention specialist, the way it's written, would have the ability to fix some of those tougher issues.
Okay, so with what you've just presented and with what Dr. Smith has stated before, the silos, the challenges from my perspective that I'm hearing you all are facing are challenges that we should be working with our student services department to fill those gaps that haven't been filled. So these are the things that I'm saying that we have to make sense in what we're doing. How is it that looking at your, and I'm not, trust me, I'm not coming at you, but how is it that looking at your attendance challenge and issues that you don't have a dropout prevention specialist? Like, I'm sorry, that doesn't make sense to me. Especially to come back to hear Vashawn is performing in basketball, they're going to champ. That is great. But what about the need for the kids that you just mentioned? Beautiful kid, tattooed, they seen him as they seen him, but this was a good kid with a good soul that could have had potential to go places. What about those kids? We have to do better in regards to that. So that's my response to that. And the other thing, I don't think anybody ever truly asked you guys, and I don't know if you're going to give me the truth or not, but what do you need as a principal? What Mr. Davis pretty much asked, what do you need as a principal for your school to see some level of success? Because what we're seeing is kind of like you guys are banging your head against the wall. And as a principal, I'm sorry, but that's not fair to you to do one-on-ones with these kids. You know, that's not even realistic to you as a person or you, Dr. Nichols, because you guys have so many other, I get it, but what do you need to have some level of success for your school?
So I've thought about this question daily, and one of the things that just kind of keeps coming to mind is we always have to fight. We are a school where Desi says 40%. I know my kids, it's more like 80%, and we have to fight to stay equivalent to my other colleagues in different schools, and I'll give just an example. The district went 1-to-1. We fought for a really long time at why that doesn't work for our students. When you're moving from house to house, you're not keeping up with them, you're losing them, and so if we want, equity for our kids, we constantly have to fight for those things, even safety. I myself have sent countless emails, including, we talked about like student leaderships. My students have sent emails to politicians about simple things like, can we get a road bump on Cass? We know the dangers of it. We've seen the cars. We are fighting for that. And sometimes it's like we just don't want to have to fight for the things that make our students equal to everybody else.
The panoramic surveys, I continue to hear about the panoramic surveys. Realistically, who's really filling out, there you go. And that's what and that's what we need. We need honesty to say, yeah, we have the panoramic surveys, but we don't have enough input from the panoramic surveys for us to be able to make whatever determination needs to be made. We can't, if we don't know, we can't help change anything. That's the food for thought that I want to make sure you guys are looking at. The last thing, and I'm sorry, because that's why Matt made me go last, but the last thing, I heard about professional development. And I heard a statement that Dr. Smith made in regards to the trust, creating a trust for our staff, for your teachers, so on and so forth. What are we really doing when we're saying professional development? I continue to ask this question, and I'm not talking about academic professional development. Are we offering professional development to our teachers, to our non-certified teachers, anything, even to our safety officers, just to say how to deal with the population that you serve? Are we teaching de-escalation training? Like, that's professional development in the world that we're dealing with now in education that should be front and center. I'm not trying to take away, but you can't get to academics until you address all of these other needs that our kids and our families are faced with, as well as our teachers. So that's always been my question. Can you guys enlighten me on what professional development actually looks like for your staff? And you.
Kind of talk about the need. So, do you mind if I address the question about what do we need? All right, so thought about this since we're going there. Now, I'm going to say this, and this worked for me when I was the middle school elementary principal, and we did a partnership with an organization, and that partnership, we contracted them to go and pick up those students that are in the same situation our high school students are in. They were responsible for meeting those needs for the school because we couldn't deal with them. We're dealing with academics. We're trying to meet state expectations. So we partnered with this organization to go out to the homes to meet with families, provide clothing, provide haircuts, things like that. And I would say when I left that school, we were at 95%, 90-90. Now, at the high school, we don't have that. I know we have some big challenges because a lot of our kids are in transition. We need to figure out a way if we have a team available to go out and execute picking up kids, not buses. It has to be a support team like that I had in middle school, elementary. So we need that team, that community. For some reason, the administrator is not going to work with administrators. They just don't trust us like that. So it has to be a community organization that connects to families in a different way because they're going to open up to them more than they open up to us. So we utilizing an organization like that for individual schools to go out and service folks to bring them back to the school.
Thank you for that. And my challenge goes with what Mr. Davis' challenge is. What you just presented, that's the challenge that I'm asking any principal that's listening to this. Come up with what your need really is. And to do, like what you're saying, I'm familiar with those programs that you're talking about. Yeah, you know, because I used to be that person. But what you're saying is that's the answer. Like, that's the start of the answer to address your needs. Y'all can present to us all day, every day. And you literally are just throwing paint against the wall. We need to understand and know what the actual need is in order for us to be able to get you where you're trying to. We want the same success that you guys want. But we can't get it if we're not getting the full picture of what's going on. And we know you need for real resources. It's disheartening to hear that you do not have a dropout person. Like, both of you all. Do you have one, Dr. Nichols?
I do.
Okay, thank you.
He visits homes, but we can't put people in our cars.
There you
So
go.
we need
So
a community.
that's your challenge.
Yes.
And it goes back to that the community. We as a district have to make sure our schools that are anchored in those communities are not just focused on what's in your school. We have to start going out and working and bringing a community into the school to be that support system. And I think that's a challenge as well. I'm done with my soapbox. Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you all.
Thank you, Dr. Smith Jr., Dr. Gale, Principal Nichols, and Principal Smith. Thank you very much. We're going to continue. I'm going to invite our St. Louis Public Schools Foundation team members, Mr. Halliday Douglas, the President and CEO of St. Louis Public Schools Foundation, and Ms. Tammy Taylor, our Board Chair. Very quickly, the mission of the St. Louis Public Schools Foundation raises funds to invest in solutions that drive equitable outcomes for all St. Louis public school students while recognizing and promoting excellence in our city's public schools. So thank you very much for being here. Mr. Douglas and Ms. Taylor.
Thank you for having us. I'm Halliday, and this is Tammy, and we're just going to get started.
So I am the current board chair of the St. Louis Public Schools Foundation, and I suppose I've been on the board for about 12 years, but I'm in the second first year of my second term as board president. And the foundation has been in existence since 1998, and we're actually celebrating our 25th anniversary right now, which is really exciting for us. We exist to mobilize the community and to raise funds for the district, to raise money for some of the things that we have heard this evening. And we are very impassioned about the district's mission. We motivate the community to give to the schools. We talk about everything that the schools are doing. And over the years, we have provided roughly about $20 million to the school district. Our mission, as Dr. Williams stated, is to raise money to invest and drive equitable outcomes. Educational equity is high on our priority list, obviously. For all St. Louis Public School students, while recognizing and promoting excellence in our city schools. Our vision is that all SLPS students, and we do mean all, and we know that there's a variance of schools in the district, but we want all of them to have a quality education and everybody to feel like they're in a safe space. We have a huge focus on health and wellness and social emotional resources that support them to achieve their goals. So the question is, how do we support the district? So we're your biggest fans. We're cheerleaders for the district. You know, we have just gone through our strategic planning, but seriously before, and you all are at 4.0, we're at 3.0 at the foundation, and prior to that, you know, our priorities were in consort with the district's priorities. So early childhood development, college and career preparedness, those were the things that we were talking about at the same time that the district was. As we are moving more and more into into our grown people shoes, let's call them that, you know, we are trying to develop a little bit more of our own identity and how we can be more instrumental in helping the district. And so in our strategic plan, we are really, really trying to focus on your innovative ideas to solve some of the problems or situations, circumstances, whatever have you in the district, but allowing you to incubate those ideas and then ultimately implementing them in the district. We are a direct way for the community to give to the district. We fund programming causes that are not eligible to be expensed to the district. And it used to be we would fund a gap. In the event that the district didn't have enough money, we would fund that gap. It generally takes less time from planning phase to execution phase for program launches due to relative efficiencies in procurement processes. And I spoke already about kind of the whole incubation kind of idea. I don't want to read the slide verbatim.
And so just following up on Tammy's point, we are huge fans, biggest fans of St. Louis Public Schools. And while we have launched, as St. Louis Public Schools has launched a new strategic plan this year, our priorities, as you can see, actually they're overlay with the district's priorities, as they always have. A lot of our programs are legacy programs. The big difference in terms of how we're rolling out our strategy really has to do with, again, and I'll speak a little bit more about this later, that level of how are we doubling down and supporting leadership, district designated leadership in their everyday work. So we focus in on health and well-being, and I believe a number of you all touched on this. Health and well-being is really about thinking through the preconditions for school success. If you're not feeling safe, if you are unhoused, if there's challenges with trauma in the household, you're not going to show up. And when you do show up, it might not be ready to learn and fully engage in ways that allow you to grow academically as well as non-cognitively. So when we think about health and well-being, we really think about what are those preconditions to student success. When we think about post-secondary opportunity or readiness and opportunity, again, that's the skills, academic skills, behaviors, mindsets, and post-secondary exposures that are really necessary to getting our scholars to and through college and or career, and or landing in a career of their choosing. And then teacher capacity building, and that actually should say educator capacity building, not teacher capacity building. Sorry about that. We have to move the people to move the work, so to speak, and that means by moving them, that means supporting folks in the ways that make most sense to their reality. And so that whole bucket is focused on really attracting, keeping, and growing the backbone of our district, which is the workforce, to create stability for our families, our students, and the programming that the district offers. Oh, yeah, that is me. So our commitments in terms of our partnership, really the foundation serves as a fiscal agent for about 200 district affiliated pots of money, everything from schools, school-based funds, to specific programmatic funds that are hosted in the district office. We're the folks who sort of solicit and manage from those private non-governmental funds. We provide quarterly reporting. I'm really focusing on some of the newer or points of emphasis on this. But we, as part of this whole new endeavor with our strategic plan, we've really made sure we're staffed up and equipped with the expertise in strategy and change management and education, both in terms of instruction and in policy, and also social work, to really support district leads and how they mobilize the work. And then obviously, or one of the big things we do is we maintain representation on our board. We definitely believe those most impacted by programming decisions need to have a hand in framing those, framing the problem and designing solutions to those problems. So we have 2 ex officio roles on our board, as well as a permanent board member from the district staff.
And so we do have just a few limitations in our partnership work with the district. And one of them is we don't fundraise for specific schools. We fundraise for causes. And that's a significant thing because, each school has their PTO and different things like that. And so we do not go out and individually fundraise for those types of things. Unless otherwise specified by a grantor or other provisions outlined in our MOA, the foundation will not apply a management fee for non-school philanthropic funds designated to the district, and you'll hear a little bit more about that on a different slide. And we acknowledge all of the donations that are received on behalf of the district, and the district does not do that. And the district has to comply with all internal financial control needs aligned with legal regulations.
Yeah.
So,
I think a critical thing to note is that, I think everyone knows that there's a tax benefit with gifts that the district as a governmental entity is not allowed to, or not permitted to provide. And so as a 501c3 and the designated partner, that is something the foundation is able to do for community members who are committed to the cause of St. Louis Public School education for all. What you have here is just a breakdown of our expenses. Essentially, on the left-hand side, that's sort of how our costs, our expenses are distributed. A big part of that is educator capacity building. That has a lot to do with design work going on at some of our schools with veteran principals who are trying to do some staff empowerment work. And then also the consortia schools that is really focused in on retention through creating meaningful opportunities for staff to engage with students and engage in their work in more like inspirational ways. What you see on the right-hand side is sort of the expense ratio, and essentially for every dollar the foundation raises for general operating purposes, we raise $8 for that goes toward district programming. It's about a little under 12% kind of, or basically operate like a overhead, which is it sort of beats the national averages, which can range anywhere from 15 to 35%. Big takeaway: the vast majority of what the community provides goes toward programming. One of the last things I'll push up here before we open it up to any questions is this really speaks to our new strategy. And it's pretty awesome because I heard it several times from Dr. Smith Jr.'s team, but also from many of you all getting pretty intentional about like eliminating the guesswork. You know, the guesswork about what works and what we're in and how to solve for or address some of the challenges we're dealing with in the district. So again, what we do is we partner with district leads and we develop a theory of action, an if-then statement. So if we have a pathway, a dual enrollment pathway to make sure folks can get credit for high school and college at the same time, then more kids will be prepared for college or career of their choosing. That's sort of a theory of action. And paired with that is a metrics for success, so we have specific measures that we attempt to use, and that's supported with a lot of research. So we provide a lot of research support to make sure that we are very clear about the focus and how we're approaching that, and that we're supporting the district leads and educators along the way so that we can learn from what's working and we can scale it and do more of it. And we can maybe even embed it into how we go about doing our day-to-day work. So that's sort of the end of our presentation in terms of how we're approaching the work, how we're approaching partnership and collaboration. And I'll just say it's, I mean, you all employ some really amazing people. And it's just been just awesome being back in 801 this year. Questions?
Questions from board members? Yes, Ms. Sharma.
Hi, I was just wondering, what's an example of like a program that the foundation has kind of helped implement in the district, like maybe in like one of the schools, and just to get a kind of a better idea of, you know, what you guys kind of do.
Love that question. So one program actually that we support is Early College Academy. It provides dual enrollment opportunities for high school juniors and seniors. And, you know, the impact of what we've seen is that about 92% of those graduates is about 60 students in a given year. And the board last month approved a measure that will expand that to 90 students beginning in 2024. But essentially, we're we're providing this dual enrollment program. We're seeing results that around 94% of those participants are actually transitioning to college, but they're transitioning with an associate's degree. That's one of the tools that the district is utilizing in terms of dual credit options for kids. Then, IB and AP are also options.
So does the foundation help support, like, cover tuition costs or, like, help students?
We do,
transition?
so in partnership with the Institutional Advancement Office, we do provide support for scholarship monies. Donors designate where they want their sort of resources to go. Our job is to make sure we're connecting with district staff to ensure that there is alignment and/or redirection that really meets what the programming need might be. So yes, there are scholarships. I would say not scholarships out there that are as robust as we would want or hope, but we do award anywhere between I think 15 and 20 every year.
My knowledge was that I thought the district completely covered the costs for the early college academy, so I was just trying to get an understanding of, like, that was things that you guys help out with, or it's like combination.
So it's a combination. Right now we're working in partnership, but our strategy is, again, to incubate, refine, and embed. And just as our conversation continues to go in partnership with the district, at some point they might say, this is a solution that is working. It's doing what we want it to do. We're going to shift how we are solving the problem of post-secondary success by expanding this out or having more students participate. And I think you all have actually started that measure anyway with expansion, and especially expansion that is covering comprehensive schools.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry, I have a lot of questions. Can you tell me who is on the board?
We have a pretty expansive board. There are roughly 22 members of our board. It's probably the easiest thing for us to do is probably pull it up on the
website.
Because
Did you have a specific curiosity about?
Well, I'm curious about
members
everything.
of the community.
But you said you have district people. Do you have district parents on the board? Because those are actually the most impacted.
We have
not
a couple
district
of
staff.
district parents.
How did you find them?
Through various different channels. We have a governance committee that assists us in trying to find people that we think would be great on our board. And it's funny because I was talking to President Davis the other day. We have always had a representative, meaning not the superintendent or not the district liaison, that has always been on our board that was representative of the community. So i.e. a parent, and we also have a principal who's on our board, Sean Williams.
So Mallinckrodt?
We use basically
Okay, that's not representative. Sorry.
Yeah.
The gifted school experience is not representative of the entire district.
That's right. No. So we use a matrix, basically, that accounts for gender, ethnicity, race and ethnicity, even age. Education level and education background, and
socioeconomic status?
Socioeconomic.
Okay. My next question is, you dispersed $2.5 million this year, or that's the plan?
So what you're seeing is last year's data.
Okay, last year.
Yeah. But the intention is that we'd be pretty consistent with that.
I don't want to sound ungrateful, but is that really all? I mean, this is a big city. There's a lot of businesses here. We're all worried about what's happening in downtown because those businesses, we want them to stay there. But there is not more community, rich people community, on the ground people community who want to be part of our district?
So last year, was a pretty interesting year for the foundation. Essentially, the entire team sort of turned over, and so we're sort of getting back up on our horse after having a pretty stable leader for quite some time, I think better part of a decade. And so in terms of what general trends we see in philanthropy, like nationally, like even if you consider the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, for example, you combine all the philanthropy in the world and it still accounts for about 1% of like input when you like against government funding and gifts. So the purpose of private community dollars generally is to make sure, is to get community buy-in, and also basically to support things that essentially, for instance, in this case, St. Louis Public Schools might be too big to try, right? When you roll out something, new or innovative and try to adapt it to the St. Louis Public Schools context, that's really complicated given the wide breadth of schools and school types and demographics. So trying to do whole hog everything at the first go, having not tried it in anything, just could be challenging. And so the foundation sort of comes in and supports, incubating something in a very, with some parameters for learning to happen, and then following the district's lead in terms of how to adapt and scale to more context.
Okay. And I guess my last question is, innovation is great, but we also know plenty of things that work right now. Are we funding those? Do we always have to do new stuff? Can we not just do what works?
So I don't have the presentation up. So we're only launching about 4 new things this year, but everything we do is based off of best practice lit, or a proven or promising practice we see in the field, and we do follow the district's lead and sort of, in terms of that strategy or where it fits into the transformation plan. There are programs out there that show, efficacy. The issue is knowing what the preconditions for success are is challenging, because I've gotten into amazing conversations with Deputy Vinoy and her team about knowledge management. How do we continue to learn forward? Frable is not Ashland. And so what works at Frable, figuring out how we effectively adapt that practice to an Ashland is going to be different. The teacher retention rates are different, right? The student mobility rates are different. And so I think you're right. We know some things that work. I think what the ground game is figuring out how we adapt those things that work. And so part of our strategy is incubate, so that is the new stuff. But we're with 4 new projects. Most of our stuff is in the refinement phase, which is how do we adapt and broaden the context.
Okay,
thank you.
I'm going to go to Ms. Fowle because it's almost bedtime. Ms. Fowle.
Hi, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Can you hear me? Okay. So I guess I kind of I had some more questions to follow up on board composition and requirements of the board members. You mentioned that you have 22 board members, and I'm wondering what the requirements are. I know that you did some measure of gauging parental, worthiness, for lack of a better term, but are you requiring board members to contribute a certain amount of hours or work or money, funding, in order to serve on the board, and what is the board term of service? And I have several more questions, but we'll start there.
Okay, so we do have requirements. However, to have a monetary requirement would be incredibly restrictive. So we do not have a monetary requirement, but from a board perspective, we absolutely want to be able to tell our constituents that we have 100% board participation. So we certainly ask our board members to give to their capacity, but to be clear about that, at the end of the day, if that's $5, $100, that's acceptable, because that way we can still say that we have 100% board participation. We, as Halliday mentioned, we have a matrix that looks at all of the different core competencies that we're looking for on our board to put us in a position to fight and promote the district in a certain way. So we always need attorneys, so we have some attorneys that are on our board. We have a finance committee, so we're always looking for people who have expertise in finances. We have a communications committee, so we are always looking for people who can assist us in marketing, and strategy is a huge need. So we have different core competencies in which we're looking for board members to be able to satisfy.
And we also have what we call lived experience, and I think that's really important because, again, you know, those who are most impacted by the work should have a role in framing the problem. Programming is mostly in the administrative work, so my day-to-day work, me and my teams, but we do have a program committee. It's currently actually chaired by the district staff representative, and you know, that's the forum where we talk about strategy, and we talk about things, particularly including making sure we have the voices of those who have lived experience of various challenges and interventions needs.
So I guess, is there anything in your bylaws that really kind of dictates the makeup of the board, how many of each type of person that you want, or the type of expertise, other than just the number of board members? Because I'm wondering how we really ensure alignment to district needs. I serve on the Pillar 5 committee, which is strategic community partnerships in short. So one of the things that is critical when we bring a community partner into the district is making sure that their needs and their donors are aligned with the needs and outcomes of our students. So what guardrails do we have in place, making sure that not only those needs are being met, but that we're ensuring outcomes by expenditure of dollars? Do we have, besides the district parent, what, I guess, would your bylaws specify the district involvement, the appropriate district involvement should be? Sorry, I've got a toddler, I'm on mute.
So we don't have bylaws that direct us, but we do have our partnership agreement that actually speaks specifically to the partnership, the strategic and the operational alignment. So we don't, like at the foundation, sort of invent, what the gaps are. We ask the questions, and then we go out and we find the research that we then sit with the district staff member around, and that sort of guides the work and the programming that is funded through the foundation. So it's less of a governance function and more of an operational function, how we operationalize our mission.
Thank you. So do you work at all with the Pillar 5 committee or the leadership team there to make sure that all of the needs of the other pillars are being met and equitably?
So Erin, and I'm forgetting her last name, but she's Kane meets. Thank you, thank you so much. Erin meets with Anna Babcock from my team, who leads development and community engagement. I believe bi-weekly, every 2 weeks, and then Lori and I, Deputy Willis and I, we have rapid cycle meetings pop in. It's usually a bit more frequent than every 2 weeks, but it's a little less formal than that.
Thank you. One or two more questions. there you go. Sorry. He's been waiting a long time. So I guess how many annual donors do you have that are unique approximately? I mean, is it 20 to 50 big donors? Is it several thousand small donors? How does your contributions break down, and what do they look like? Give me
So our it's an interesting question in terms of unique donors. I actually did not pull that specific item. I do have data that talks about our unique donations, and that's usually around that 550 to 600 person range in any given year. And there's a subset of donors, of big donors, that sort of really make up the bulk of our sort of district programming initiatives. The school, a significant amount of the work we do in terms of processing is school-based. Again, there's about 160 specifically school-affiliated sort of funds that we support and administer. And
thanks, and I appreciate that. I think I missed the last part of the question about ensuring alignment to the district needs. So if you're implementing a program in a school, for example, how do you kind of work with the district to outline what is needed,
Natalie,
and then how often do you check back in
Natalie, you broke up. Could you repeat that?
to make sure? Yeah. Can you hear me?
You're good now, yeah.
Yeah, so if you're going back to the question about ensuring alignment, let me move. All right. Can you hear me now? The screen is kind of
You're
weird.
good. You're good.
You're back. Okay. Okay, so going back to the question about ensuring alignment, like if you've got donors that have or a need, I guess, that has specified that something needs to go to a specific school, or that a specific program will be piloted or tried out, how are we setting the goals, and then how often do you check back in and kind of report back whether it was successful and what needs to happen to move forward? And I know that you said you've got a new team, but are there guardrails that are already in place that you've built from? Are you working on a new model, or how is that work? What does that look like?
So it's a little bit of, I guess, the combination of there were processes in place that had guardrails in terms of both alignment and also just project management. And then with our new strategic plan, we're actually just even sharpening those tools, but also how we're aligned. I've had the privilege of working with the district on the deputy level about 5 years ago, and learning, like being funded by the foundation at that time, doing talent work, but also just understanding, as a district leader, what did I need in terms of communication, coordination, but also in empowerment and leadership. So when we roll out a program, we specifically make sure there's a theory of action in place, that there's metrics for success. We support with project planning. Basically, we do as much legwork as needed that from the district lead needs to make sure things can launch and be successful, understanding that there are just some capacity gaps to anything new, right? And or capacity gaps to anything you're trying to refine. Refinement work and learning is just hard. So our alignment is less about governance. It's more about how we operationalize the work, and that work is done hand in hand with the district. We don't make decisions about whether or not, a program is going to be like impactful. You know, our part is to make sure that, you know, we have an agreement on impact and that we're supporting troubleshooting and progress monitoring to get there.
So would that be like an annual check-in, a monthly check-in to make sure things are on track, or how
Well,
frequently is that?
for outside stakeholders, that varies based on the provisions of the grant. For district leads, we set a cadence. For some district folk, we meet every 2 to 3 weeks. Others, it's every 2 months. And we proactively reach out when we know the clock is ticking. So different grants have different report deadlines, and so that's how we sort of manage that from an external standpoint. From an internal standpoint, you know, we like to promote the great work happening in the district and the great leaders leading that work. And so we do check in so we can communicate that as well.
And then just the last question is, where did that go? How are we making sure that we are aligning all of our budgetary part? It goes back to that alignment and kind of the overview of how funds are spent. I mean, I want to make sure that we're not spending the same funds if the foundation has them, when it's something that could, you know, help, as Emily said, something that's already working. You know, if we could save district funds and put that somewhere else, if the foundation could step in, just making sure that we're different pillars of our district, making sure that, I'm not saying that you should operate exactly like the district, but making sure that we're kind of lockstep there, because if the SLPS Foundation is in fact to promote St. Louis Public Schools, we need to make sure that we share the same vision.
So, like from a fiscal standpoint, you know, like our audit, we complete our audit. We're like a subcategory or whatever to the district's audit, and so there's that transparent action. We have set up quarterly meetings with the district staff already to make sure everyone's reporting in terms of what the needs are. And I also meet with Victoria and Nichelle from the Budget and Grants Office about every 2 weeks, just because we're trying to make sure we're problem solving ahead of time in case if there's like any conflicts that come up with grants and spending, and who's like making sure that there isn't redundancies. I think the partnership agreement that the board has put out specifically specifying that the reporting needs in terms of financial transparency is a really, I think, a great provision, simply because it does make sure that you all are well positioned to monitor and make sure that, you know, the district is getting the most bang from the buck from the community. And because if you all say, actually, you know, we can take care of this. This is what we're taking care of. You know, we can use community dollars for some other thing that could be strategic around incubating X. So I'm not sure if that fully addressed it. The last thing I'll say, though, is in terms of, so there is fiscal alignment, but there's also just, you know, there's that, you know, there's that, you know, we thought partner with the district in everything we basically do in terms of project management of our programs.
Well, I appreciate you being here, and I would really like to hear more from you more often, just because I think it's beneficial for the community to hear from you as well. So, and answering some of these questions, kind of, where I can sit down. Sorry, and I appreciate you being here, and like I said, if you could come more often and give us like a little bit more involvement, a little more insight into what you're doing, I would really appreciate that. And I do have to get this one to bed, but thank you.
We'd love to do that as well. And I know Tammy has highlighted there's been a past tradition of the board coming to present at foundation meetings in terms of what you've, like in terms of where your strategic vision is as well. The district staff sit in those meetings because we need to make sure that there is alignment, and if there's information, particularly on the ground, that needs to make sure it's covered, that's covered also in that forum. But we'd absolutely love to report or visit with you all, and however frequently you'd like.
And we absolutely welcome you to come visit us. Our board would love to hear report outs from you all as well.
Ms. Jones.
I have one question, just one. And it's related to a question that Ms. Val just asked. And it's in regards to the way that people donate money. Over the years, so you've been in business for about 25 years, you said, and there seems to be a tendency to have donated schools south of St. Louis, and the schools in North St. Louis never really get those funds. And I noticed when I looked you up that there's a portion that states that the donors can remain anonymous. And I don't think that's right, because, and they can just, if they remain anonymous, but that they can relegate who they want their funds to go to. And it would seem that they don't want it to go to North St. Louis schools, because it hasn't reached that. We have 60 or so schools, and we only have almost 15 to 16 PTOs that could be well-funded through your foundation. And so a lot of people keep asking, why are the schools in North St. Louis don't have as many resources, but the monies always seem to find its way south. So how do you justify the equity portion of this? Because I don't see where the foundation has really made a real effort to make sure that you're going north to make sure those monies get over here.
So I think there's a few things there, right? So there is donor designated things, and a lot of that does come down to the school. People want to support their school communities, and we actually don't do, again, individual school fundraising, right? We really focus in on district initiatives, and again, guided hand in hand with district leads. So a lot of our funding is funds programs that are either available to all, based on a district sort of process. So, the leadership redesign work that is run by the district, and I believe it's an open application given certain parameters. Historically, I would say if there's equity gaps, they've probably been mirrored. So if there's been an equity gap on the foundation side, it's because it's reflecting what's on the district side, right? And that's not an accusation, but that's a reality in terms of how we work. We work to support and serve St. Louis public schools. And so because of how aligned we are with the staff, basically those things mirror. But what I can also say is that right now, as I'm looking across the portfolios of work, our programs are either open to all in the district and or essentially do support schools in the north side of the city. We have grants that are only, we have one grant that only can operate at Yateman and Ashland Elementary School. We have another another grant that supports operations at only Vashon and now Soldan, right? So our district-wide initiatives are not built to sort of
Polar focused
on a
specific area.
Yeah, but there is a funding there is a funding gap, to your point, particularly when you talk about PTOs, and we're still we're still trying to launch things, but a conversation I have gotten into with some members of the PAC had to do with the possibility of establishing an equity fund, which, maybe essentially PTOs would give a certain percent or whatever to a pot of money that the foundation would match out of its discretionary funding to support PTO development and or family engagement practices, specifically in North City, St. Louis.
I have a question. I'm listening to your presentation, and I think I'm challenged also with hearing the presentation from the district and the dropout challenges that they're faced with. But in hearing what you're saying in your presentation, I'm hearing a lot of your meetings and conversations, and conversion is actually happening on the district level. And I'm going to give you an example of Frable School. So had we as a board, one board representative or whomever had a conversation with you all, then I don't think that the board will probably have voted for Frable School to get additional dollars, because that's something that the foundation was actually working on, but we had no knowledge. So I hear what you're saying, the purpose and what the foundation has been doing, the work that you've been doing, but it appears that the conversations that you're having aren't with who you should be having them with. At some point, you should be having some level of conversations with the board members, because what you're looking for, you're saying is district-led on the decisions that you're making on how funds are being disseminated within the schools and so forth. That really comes from the board having to vote on dollars that's being funded for each one of those schools as well. So it seems to me, the work that you guys are doing, great work, but there seems to be a disconnect between the foundation and the board. And this is the first time I've gotten a presentation of this magnitude that I still kind of have some questions and trying to get more clarity and understanding on. And I think the board has asked, a lot of our board members has referenced and asked how many board members you have or who are on your board. Is there any representation of this board on your board?
No.
And is there a reason behind that? I'm just curious. Because I think at some point, even if they're not on there, I think at some point there should be some type of correlation and communication between either the president, vice president, secretary, somebody that represents this board to get full understanding as to where and what the foundation is doing. So when we're coming back voting and making the decisions that we're voting on regarding finances, that we're all on the same page. The way you've presented it to me, just in my opinion, is that you, the foundation, dictates who and how you're going to do what you're going to do within the district after meeting with the staff to make those decisions, and totally omitting the board, because we have to vote on 90% of the things that are actually going on, and looking at what you have outlined here. That's just how I'm looking at it. So help me see it differently.
So I just want to make sure I'm clear. Are you asking for more knowledge sharing? I think to get to your first question, there are no members of the school board on the foundation board, and I think this came up in a correspondence when we looked at sort of 11 sort of similar practices, and then accounted for another one that
Mr. Davis.
Mrs. President Davis sent us. What we saw was, in terms of districts that were sort of moving the needle forward in achievement, and or were similar in kind of the demographics and the challenges that we're facing in the district, the vast majority of those did not have ex officio seats or seats for board members. So we're sort of thinking about what's happening nationally and aligning ourselves with this specific model nationally. I think an important part of this, though, has to do with serving as an intermediary organization between the community and the district. And, you all, I think the current board is, overseeing a lot of transformation and a lot of change, and is coming from, a space where at some point that trust broke down and there was a need for an intermediary. I think, you know, in conversations we continue to have, and I'm sure you all continue to have, this is a community that's very fractured. It's just, you know, the racism is real, classism is real. And, you know, this municipality is broken up into 114 different, you know, counties and territories, and is not unified for a reason, for a lot of different reasons. And I think one of the things we do as a good job of as an intermediary, and we're hoping to do a better job of, is making sure that we are really being great advocates and stewards while also catching people where they are in the community.
And I appreciate that, but and that's our job as well, to catch people where they are. And I think the challenge, and why we're constantly banging our heads, like we've stated before, is it seems to me from your presentation, the statements that you've made, that we're working in silos. The foundation is doing what the foundation chooses and thinks that they need to do for the district, and then the board is working in the capacity of what we're doing. It may not be from your perspective, but I'm telling you, the way this has just been presented to me is your role, because from what you just stated is the board had issues or challenges or trust factors in regards to the community, and you all are serving as intermediaries to be able to say, we can advocate for the board or for the district because they're having their own challenges. That's what I got out of the statement that you just made. And I find that totally offensive for that statement to be made, because if we're all here for the same thing and the same reasons, and I heard you say that you did your research and nationally this is how it looks. And I think, I'm not attacking you guys. I always have to say that because I'm passionate about what we're actually doing here. We cannot continue to focus on what's done nationally. What happens nationally does not always fit the need of what's happening here in St. Louis Public Schools in this city. And you are right. There are a lot of separate and people working in different groups, but we're all supposed to be on the same page. Our number one priority should be the best interest of our kids and the staff that we have working for us. And to hear you give your presentation and the statements that you guys have provided, and not too long before that presentation, there was another presentation where we're hearing 14% dropout, or higher, 14% attendance. That's what we should be concentrating on. What the board member Donna just stated was your representation is that funds are going south. Vashon, you said you're doing whatever with Vashon. Therapy, they're having issues. Dropout, how are we working together to address those issues? That's all I'm saying.
So I definitely appreciate that, and I certainly didn't mean to cause offense. You know, the one thing we do is we do ask what the need and the gap is, similar to what you just did. I mean, we're launching something called Therapeutic Strategies in partnership with a few schools that brings therapists that coach and provide direct service to students, as well as part of their time supporting educators in the buildings so that there can be more therapeutic like classrooms, right? Or relationship-driven classrooms. So we listen, similar to what you do on trying to figure out those needs. In terms of alignment, we align with the district from the sense that, I mean, we really rely on the people you empower to manage the district to do that decision making.
So our programming is not arbitrary. The district is the catalyst for the programming in which the foundation supports. Now, at the end of the day, you're absolutely correct. We should all be in consort with one another, and if the discussion should be around more information sharing and ensuring that the information that is given at our board, of which your board, well, not your board, but the superintendent is certainly there, as well as a liaison at every one of our meetings, and that has been since the beginning of time. So, you know, we perhaps need to do a better job to make sure that that information gets disseminated to your board. But the information has always been there. Our door has always been open, and we've always been willing to come here. I predate probably everybody up there, and, well, not Donna. But I've come here to present. The last time I was here was in 2021, and I was here the year before, and I was here the year before that. And we do share the same passion. Let's be clear, we're all volunteers, myself inclusive. So there's no doubt about where our concern, where our heart, where our dedication is. It's with the district. This is a hard hill to climb, not just for you, but for us as well. We go and we get in the trenches every day and sing the praises of the district. And oh, by the way, the trauma-informed partnership with BJC, we had that 10 years ago, where we made sure that we had nurses in all of the schools and therapists in all of the schools on behalf of the district. So we are committed. So perhaps we need to do a better job at making sure that the information gets disseminated the way it needs to be disseminated. And we are more than willing to do that. Thank you.
Ms. Sonia.
Yeah, I thank you all for coming and doing this work. You know, one of the things that I've learned from being here in my time is that, you know, the course of the district has changed. I mean, even having local control is new. So I don't want you all to feel like you need to defend yourselves. What I would like to see is if there's any kind of disconnect or if there's more alignment, because I don't doubt that the passion is there, but I think we all feel a constant need of, you know, you're hearing about the issues that are very pressing, and we want to make sure that we're working towards the same goals. So maybe we can just set up a time for you all to meet with President Davis or Vice President Cousins and set up some more routine times to talk, or take a look at your board and figure out maybe how we can be, you know, more integrated. I just don't want us to get stuck in like defending or proving or any of that when, like, if we're here for the same thing and there is any disconnect, or if there's just room for more alignment, let's just figure out how we can make that happen.
And I think that sounds just right. And I also want to say this is maybe my first time at least hearing about potential issues with alignment. And so I think we definitely want to take advantage of any invitation to make sure we are aligned.
Okay. I'm sorry, this is going to be a late night, so I appreciate your time. Thank you. We'll follow up on some of these issues. We still do have an outstanding partnership agreement, which has not been renewed since 2019, so it is out of date. So the board's going to take that up at a future date, and we'll deliberate that at a different time. So thank you for this,
Thanks for
Dr.
having
Williams.
us.
Thank you.
Go on to
Thank you very
the
much.
next presentation.
I'd like to invite our Deputy Superintendent for Accountability, Ms. Cheryl Vanoy, to talk a little bit about our annual performance report that was just recently released by our Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. She'll also share some information about the Missouri Assessment Program and end of course. Deputy Vanoy?
And Ms. Vanoy, I hate to do this to you, but a lot of the beginning of your presentation kind of goes to the background of MSIP 6 and how it works, and we're all certified board members, so I think we understand that. So in the interest of time, do you want to skip forward a little bit or do that very briefly?
Sure. What page do you want me to start on?
Do you want to just go to the results?
Sure. This slide, Mr. Davis? Okay, these are the actual results from the MSIP 6 Annual Performance Report. And you can see on the first 8 rows, points possible and received by all students and also the student group in ELA, math, science, and social studies. Additionally, you can see a designation on the far right. Those designations can range from floor to approaching to on track to target. The overall MPI or MAP performance index for that content area is outlined on the second to the last column. Student group is a designation that DESE takes student results from 5 different categories. Those categories are Black, Hispanic, direct certification, students with IEPs, and ELL students. From this new MPI, the metrics are aligned to those same 4 designations. As reflected on the screen, 7 of the 8 categories, you will see that the designation is approaching. We only have a floor issue in all students in math, since that MPI is less than 300. The next 4 rows shows the growth of the students. This represents the growth of each student. As an explanation, the student's 3rd grade result is compared to their 4th grade result, which is compared to their 5th grade result, and so on. Those that have a higher score from year to year are then compared to the scoring rubric. In these growth categories, you can see that the designation is above average, other than the below average in all students in math. However, you can see in the math content area that the 5 student group MPI, we are growing individual students from year to year, and we actually receive 75% of those points possible. The other important portion of the screen is that all student achievement and growth of students is equal. In the past, districts could ignore specific students and still be fully accredited. Consequently, they could only concentrate on overall status. The remaining portions of the performance area involve success-ready students, or CCR, College and Career Readiness, in ACT, SAT, ASVAB, Compass, Accuplacer, and WorkKeys. The advanced credit includes dual enrolled, dual credit, advanced placement, and IB, which is International Baccalaureate. The graduation rate is calculated at 4, 5, 6, and 7 rate, and the district receives the highest of any of those 4 categories. The 180-day follow-up of students looks at what students are doing after graduation, 180 days later, and is aligned to positive placements, and that can include 2-year, 4-year college, military, gainfully employed, and technical school enrollment. 2 of these areas are approaching, with advanced credit listed as on target and follow-up as target, the highest designation. To wrap up this portion on the performance, of the 128 points, the district earned 69 of those points, or 53.9%. To continue the information, this is new for MSIP 6, where we did not receive points for this in previous accountability structures. In the improvement area, we're proud to announce that we received 100% of the points in the improvement plan, or in St. Louis Public, we call it the transformation plan. The Panorama survey is given in the fall and spring, and we are receiving 100% of those points. The kindergarten entry readiness and the individual career and academic plan for 8th graders produced 100 of those 4 points each. We've discussed a lot about attendance this evening. Our 90-90 results were under the floor, and so therefore we received 0 points. And if we make a decision to expand our current CTE programs, we can receive as much as 2 points each year. MSIP required documentation involves the audit submission, annual secretary of the board report, or ASBR, and core data submission. Of these 6 total points, we received 4. And in the continuous improvement overall, we earned 88.5 of the points, or 46 out of 52. Additional information that we can share involves a number of students that participated in the assessments. All of these are well above the 95% requirement. Other areas that can be considered for accreditation include fund balances. Is the superintendent certificated? Does the Board of Education complete training? And is the school district compliant with state and federal law? As a complete document, the district earned 69% of the total points, 115 out of 180 possible. In order to maintain accreditation, all districts must have at least 70% by the time that there are 3 years of data on this APR. So that will include 2021-22, which we have, 22-23, 22-23 that we will be taking, and then 2023-24 for the last year. DESE has indicated that you must have trend data in order to make this determination. So now that we've talked about the results from 21-22, we're preparing for the same results for 22-23. We've given the STAR reading and math assessment 2 times, one in September and one in December. We have also given CSAs and CFAs each quarter. And we had a few students who actually graduated in December, and they had to take all of the 4 if they had not previously taken them in Algebra 1, English 2, Biology, and Government. And we finished the WEET assessment, which is given to our English language learners at the end of the month. As we look forward to what's still coming, we are currently in the pre-EOC high school practice test. We're providing the ACT on site at each high school on Tuesday, April 4th for all juniors. The end of course or EOC assessments will start April 6th through May 12th. And the MAP grade level for 3rd through 8th will start April 17th through May 5th. We will wrap up the year with STAR, the 3rd one, during May 1st through May 10th, and that way we can compare the September, December, and May scores. And then we should be finished with MAP makeup on the 19th of May. So just to recap, DESE will not be making any recommendations regarding accreditation until there are 3 years of data. And you can see on the screen the 3 years that we're talking about. DESE has indicated that the pandemic is still impacting these specific scores. Our 3rd graders who tested last spring had a possibility of being virtual for 2 years. We also received a school APR similar to what I shared tonight as a district. Each school has their own. It was passed out 2 weeks ago when the embargo was lifted. I've personally been meeting with network superintendents and their schools to have a deeper discussion regarding their scores, explaining the new metrics, and supporting them going forward with their goal review. And a reminder, on the far right, you can see the accreditation points are displayed. The percentage, anything below 50% would be unaccredited. Anything from 50 to 69 would be provisional accredited. 70 to 89% is fully accredited, and then 90% is distinct in performance. I know I've shared a lot of information tonight, so I'll be glad to clarify anything or answer any questions.
Ms. Benoy, are you able to draw any conclusions from the results we get from STAR testing and correlating to the results on this data? And is this kind of the first year where we've been able to put those 2 metrics together?
So we've had STAR for multiple years. What we haven't had for multiple years is consistency in the MAP or EOC, as Dr. Marion Smith talked about earlier. There is a designation in STAR that's a predictor for the MAP test, and we will certainly be reviewing that when the actual scores come back in the fall so that we can see if what STAR predicted is what actually occurred. We also have our CSAs and CFAs that are aligned to the standards, and we can certainly triangulate that data with STAR, with CSA, CFAs, and then results of MAP.
And I asked that question because, we've been given presentations, various snippets of STAR data, and particularly in elementary schools, it showed that the new curriculum was resulting in growth. But when you look at the MAP results, and just as an elementary in general, maybe not at specific elementary schools that level, but we did not do well in ELA, which was surprising to me, because I think we still got 0 points in ELA for elementary schools.
We had 0 points in math.
Okay, but ELA, we still were low.
So
But we did show growth, particularly in student groups.
Correct.
Which may reflect perhaps the reading intervention specialist, but still, I was disappointed to see that based on the STAR results that we've been told over and over again that there was growth, that it didn't reflect in the MAP test. So I'd be interested to know, are we wasting all our time and money on these STAR tests and they're really not telling us anything? That's really my question.
And to piggyback on that question, when we're looking at the STAR testing and the data, is that for all of our students? Because the way that I've seen the data come through, it would be STAR testing for 4 or 5 fifth graders. So you can't really gauge the growth of 4 or 5 fifth graders on the math because you don't have enough kids that are actually taking that STAR test to be able to gauge like where they are if there has been growth. I think that's the challenge that I continue to face when I'm looking at the data and the information that's being presented to us. We've been reported and shown that, say, out of the fifth grade class, you may have 10 kids that take the STAR test, and you show the growth of those 10 kids. Well, what about the other 15 kids that's in the class? Do we test them? Do we gauge their growth? Do we take the whole classroom, have them take a STAR test, and gauge the growth or see if there's been the factual impact that you guys are presenting to us matching with the MAP testing? That's kind of what you're asking, Mr. Davis.
So the item that we've been focusing on with STAR recently is the student growth percentile. And in order to show that number, you have to have a September score and a December score. So mobility could impact the numbers if we don't have a paired score. So the information that we've been sharing is that we have the percent, for instance, 40% of our students gained 50% in student growth percentile from September to December, which is half a year, which is on track. The problem is that that's not grade level equivalent. So I may be in 3rd grade, but I'm reading at a 1st grade level, but my student growth percentile is 50%. I am growing, but I'm not still at grade level from a GE standpoint. So I hope I clarified that.
You did, but you didn't.
Okay.
So let me tell you why. I understand the STAR testing and testing them where they are. So hypothetically, I don't know who takes it when or what grade level order, but say you have a 5th grader that had been working on their math and the STAR testing. And we know that they were a 5th grader, but probably on the 2nd grade level and taking the STAR testing. The goal is to elevate them to the next level. Hopefully they'll be on a 3rd grade level. If you take that same kid and you test them through the MAP test and it shows that they're now on the 3rd grade level, then we know that the STAR testing was effective. But if you test them and their MAP results come back very low, proficiency, whatever, then we have a problem. So what we're trying to ask is, are we really gaining by having our kids constantly do the STAR testing? Is it impactful enough? Does it make sense? Are we getting the results that we need? And if we are, how are we comparing those results? We would think that we would be comparing it to the MAP test. Because if they've been doing STAR testing, like you said, the fall, the whatever, now you're up to the MAP testing. Now we would hope to see some level of results is what we're trying to understand. And it's challenging for me to understand if we're getting results if we have a 5th grade class and only 5 or 6 of them are actually, like you saying, 10, are doing a fall and spring MAP, STAR testing. I don't think we have enough kids engaged enough to get the results that we're trying to go for. Telling me that 10 kids are taking the STAR testing and that they have 0.5% growth, that's cute. But what about my 15 other kids in their classroom is what I'm asking.
Sure. So hopefully, for those students that we couldn't match in September to December, hopefully they'll stay with us through May, and then we can show the SGP for those kids because they'll have 2 scores at that point. And for those students who are not mobile, for those students that have been with us all year, we can see the growth from September to December through May. Now remember, that may not be that they're on grade level, which is what MAP is looking at. MAP is saying that you need to be proficient to be on grade level, not below basic and not basiake.
Right, and that's why I gave that example on the MAP results. I think what my challenge is, we cannot continue. It's the same statement that we continue to make. Education is not like it used to be. We have to come up with more creative ways of teaching our kids and giving them the tools. Testing every other day to get them prepared for a test at the end of the year is not getting us clearly, Desi is saying we're not getting the results we're looking for. So I'm just saying my hope is that we're coming up with other creative ways of trying to get our kids engaged and comprehending, you know, what we're presenting to them, not just based off a testing tool.
Understood.
Ms. Sharma.
I just wanted to share a little bit about STAR testing from a student perspective. So we've been taking this test I've been taking it my whole time in this district. And what I've been fortunate to be in the gifted program, and so what a lot of my peers have seen is that the questions, they repeat. So we're not really being tested on new information once you get to a certain point. And I don't know, I kind of feel like maybe this platform isn't the best option that we should use, especially since we're talking about how it doesn't correlate with the MAP testing. And also, I know that at least in STAR testing, I'm pretty sure, and correct me if I'm wrong, I'm pretty sure a timer pops up if you take too long on a question, and I'm sure that added pressure doesn't help students who maybe need more time on questions, especially, say, if you're taking a math test. So I just kind of wanted to add that. Additionally, I think I might have said this before, but often, in the district, I understand that we have to do testing to test where students are at, but I found that usually you take a test, sometimes you get a score, sometimes you don't, and you never hear anything about it again. And I don't know, I personally feel like I get better and I grow if I can go over what mistakes I made, or if whatever went wrong in the test, we cover it in the classroom later on. But I feel like that doesn't happen. This information just goes to the district and we move on from our lives. And I don't know, I don't think that is the best way to go about it. And I don't know exactly what's done with the data besides presenting it and using it to figure out future things. But I think there's probably, in every classroom, and I know at my school too, there's going to be a gap in the class, where there's some students who know what they're doing and there's some who don't. Do you guys use this data to help those who maybe need that extra help, or is that communication kind of not there yet?
Thank you.
Ms. Hubbard.
Also, from a parent perspective, the STAR test makes my kids who are smart, and it's not just me being biased, it makes them feel like they are dumb because the questions keep getting harder. So my third grader is testing math at a 5th grade level. She thinks she's bad at math because she gets to these questions that she can't answer because she's not in 5th or 6th grade. And I don't know if it's worse for other children. I'm sure it's a terrible experience for many children. But that part in particular where it squishes down the kids who should feel not too much pride, but a certain amount of satisfaction is troubling to me.
So it's designed to do that so that it can predict what grade level the students are, so it keeps going until it... Sure.
She only needs to do 3rd grade math.
Understood. Understood.
I just have one quick question.
Sure.
What was the issue with the submission of data points?
So they only looked at the June 12 files that are required. We actually submit core data in August, October, December, February, April, and June. There were 12 files that are certified in June. The big one is the June attendance and enrollment so that we can get our ADA paid for. We also do suspension information. We also do the summer school prediction where we align who's teaching to what. I'm drawing a blank on the other files, but the big one is the June course completion file, and that says that Cheryl was in this class in October. What did Cheryl get when she finished the course in June? So the course completion file is the one that was 10 days late. One of the reasons, I'm not making excuses, but just giving an explanation. The June course completion goes back and compares to the October core data that says this is what this teacher is teaching at this school with these kids. When we released teachers due to vaccination and when we had multiple vacancies, when it went to match the June course completion, it couldn't match my teacher because that teacher was no longer employed to give me that grade. So we had to go back and recertify October to match what actually happened in June. Even though that teacher was not hired in October, they were hired after we let the other teacher go. The June course completion file is about 156,000 rows of data that all had to be tied back to October. So I missed one submission by 10 days.
Okay, just curious.
Sure.
Thank you. Oh, Ms. Sharma.
I just wanted to add one more thing. So something to also consider when we do district testing is some people kind of have a perception that since it's not for a grade, it's just for the district, it doesn't matter as much, so they might not actually, try on it. So I don't know, maybe more emphasis on how it affects whatever it does affect, because it affects a lot, when we administer these tests might be beneficial.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Deputy Van Noy. Our last presentation this evening, I know will be will be expedited. We do have textbook adoptions this evening on the board agenda for review. So I'm going to invite Dr. Smith Jr., our Deputy Superintendent of Academics, and Dr. Kimberly Moody, our Director of Curriculum Instruction, to the podium to share some information about textbook adoptions.
And so thank you once again. As always, we remain unwavering around learning and teaching. And so I'll turn it over to the Director of Curriculum and Instruction, Dr. Kimberly Moody. We just have 5 slides. She'll walk you through why every year we're going to come before the board in requesting money for textbooks. There's a reason for that. And then she'll walk you through the process of how we selected textbooks for spring 2023 for implementation in the fall of 2023. And then we'll open it up for any questions that you may have. So I'll turn it over to our Director of Curriculum and Instruction, Dr. Kimberly Moody.
Good evening. Thank you all for your time on this evening. And so I just want to go ahead and jump right in. I know it's late. Of course, textbook adoption supports Transformation Plan 4.0, Pillar 4. Goal 2, curriculum and instruction. We established that by the end of 2026, each scholar will have access to grade level content within current curriculum resources 100% of the time. The textbook adoption process is currently scheduled to run on a 6-year cycle. Prior to 2021-22 school year, the textbook adoption process was limited in development, which included the informal implementation of open source materials, as well as delays related to the pandemic. And so it had been a while since 2021 before we saw textbook adoption in St. Louis Public Schools. In school year 2021-22, the Curriculum and Instruction Department, with guidance and direction from academic office leadership, established a textbook adoption calendar which establishes a 6-year adoption cycle for all textbooks and curricular resources. On this next slide, you'll see our, there you go. On this next slide, you will see our textbook adoption checklist, which is aligned directly to the school board policy R6161.1. Our proposed adoptions for this spring include mathematics for grades 9 through 12, social studies for K-12, and world languages for 9-12. Are there any questions?
Are these books Or is this, I'm sorry, it's getting late for me. Are these actual books? Because I'm hearing your presentation and I want to make sure I clearly understand. The last time we ordered books for this district was, did you say 2021?
Yes.
And that was the last time we ordered math books, social study books?
No.
Okay.
That was just the SAVIS adoption, and before that, textbook adoption and ELA, it had been 17 years.
17 years?
Yes, ma'am.
I just want to make sure I understood this. So you're telling me it's been 17 years since this district has ordered books?
No.
Okay, help me.
No, it was just for ELA.
Okay.
So that was for those grade levels in ELA. When that adoption took place at that time, it had been 17 years that the district had purchased, had engaged in a textbook adoption process. I don't have before me the exact data for the timeline, but I know it's been for some of our social studies content almost 20 years since we've had textbooks.
So I'm asking that because I'm trying to wrap my head around this. So when
Yes,
we're
ma'am.
looking at these scores
Yes, ma'am.
that we're getting from DESE and everyone else,
Yes, ma'am.
where are we not efficient? Is it in social studies and math?
Absolutely.
Okay, so the last time we got books was 17 years or 20 years ago, which kind of supports the fact that we have deficiencies.
In some instances, yes.
That's all I have.
Ms. Sharma, Ms. Alhajeri, would you want to share your experiences with lack of textbooks in class? Or do you have a question?
I have a question really
Yes.
quickly. I just want to clarify, are these physical books or just online books that we're talking about, or like a combination?
Like our previous textbook adoption, they include both physical textbooks and online textbooks and Braille options in accordance with the board policy.
Okay, so in schools where perhaps there's like maybe some students don't have the best access to like internet at home, are we gonna have like physical copies available? I know at the beginning of this school year, I want to say that for some of my classes, like we didn't get physical textbooks until the end of the first semester, and we were just using like online textbooks. So it worked out for some students, but you know, for those who didn't, it wasn't helpful. So how are we going to make sure that we get this, since we're approving it now, like in time for the next school year?
Well, I am not aware of any delay in the delivery of textbooks that the district has recommended. So I can't speak to individual educator or school election of resources. However, with the board's approval, we do establish a distribution timeline which puts all textbooks in schools before the start of the school year.
Okay,
All adopted materials include both print and digital formats.
Regarding the textbook usage that I experience, I would like to say I've not used a textbook since my freshman year of high school, and that was just for one singular class. So regarding whether updating the textbooks is a huge detriment or not, in my experience, not having updated textbooks would not have affected my education at all, because we have not used them, physical textbooks or online textbooks.
Since all students learn differently, they have different ways of learning, what about the audio books? Will they be available as well?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I could add something to that. So all the online books, they usually have like audio options on them, so they can read it to you. So if every single textbook that we're giving the students has an online component that they have access to, then they should have access to the audiobook.
That is correct.
Now, I have one last question in regards to that, because everything is changing so fast and we're talking about different ways of learning. Are there, I mean, we talked about audio, we talked about paperback and that kind of thing. So are there other ways of books or students can learn virtual, that kind of thing? on books?
Absolutely.
Will those type of things be available as well?
Absolutely. If you look at some of our recommendations, particularly in social studies and world languages, there are options for virtual field trips. In our efforts to continue to provide a guaranteed and viable curriculum to all St. Louis Public School scholars, we are adding to our standards-based curriculum documents experiential learning components to support scholars with venturing outside of the classroom and alternative experiences inside of the classroom.
So are you saying the headsets, that's what you're going to be providing as well?
Well, virtual field trips don't always happen in the virtual headsets. They could just happen at the device. So scholars could potentially experience a virtual field trip via their one-to-one technology or via the Educator Smartboard. Yes, ma'am.
We say we're going to have textbooks. Are the students going to be able to take them home?
I, as Director of Curriculum and Instruction, establish that all textbooks should be, our scholars should have access to textbooks both in school and outside of school. However, that is from the district perspective. But I do understand that some things happen at the school level that I do not control. And so from this office, absolutely, yes.
But you can't control what the rest of schools actually do.
I do understand that in some spaces, taking textbooks home is not an option. However, that is not a district policy.
Okay. And I saw that we're adopting a Latin textbook.
Yes, ma'am.
Who's teaching Latin?
I don't know. You know who's teaching Latin? Okay, great.
I took 3 years of Latin.
All right, girl.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
I have another question.
Yes.
Do you think it would potentially be possible to, I don't know, this might not work out depending on how the platforms are, but have like any textbook for anything available to students so that they could potentially like learn more if they wanted? So like say, I don't know, I was like a third grader doing math and maybe I kind of wanted to do more math and that was something I was interested in. Could I like have access to a fourth grade textbook, without having to go through too many obstacles?
That would be something that could happen, particularly with these new adoptions, because online options are available. Now, we could not guarantee a hard copy because we do order to meet the needs of scholar population by school. However, if a third grade scholar was interested in accessing a fourth grade math textbook, they could absolutely do so virtually.
I was thinking virtually. in my
Yes,
head,
ma'am.
yeah. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
So one of the things that Dr. Moody did mention is that in our standards-based curriculum plans, there are extension activities and resources that are built in that our teachers can use to access additional opportunities for learning. And so one example is like Khan Academy that most people are familiar with. And so if you wanted to extend your learning around a particular topic, there's resources aligned to our priority standards that goes beyond what's in the textbook. But I think what's critically important, and so I think it would be remiss of me not to say this, is you heard Dr. Moody say that some of our textbooks hadn't been adopted for 17 years. And so we are playing catch up, right? And so what you have in front of you is a 6-year calendar that says every time that we see you, we're going to be coming to you so that we can make sure that we have guaranteed and viable curricular resources that are up to date just in time, because we haven't had that. And so that's in the past. But what we're asking is to make it current, to make it right, is to be able to have these resources in the hands of our scholars. So I hear our scholars on the board saying, well, you haven't had those text resources before and it didn't impact your practice. And I think it's because we didn't have those available, right? And so now we're trying to make sure that the text resource is a viable resource to have and to ensure that we're teaching to those Missouri state standards. And so we just want to get it right. So 4 years from now, we will have gone through a full 6-year cycle, and so all of our textbooks will be as accurate as they can be, and then we'll be coming back to you again to ask for additional resources. So it's just getting it right when we haven't been in that space for quite some time.
Thank you, Dr. Smith. Are there any more questions for me? Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Smith. Thank you, Dr. Moody. Just one last piece. Today is March the 14th, and around the world, mathematicians celebrate pi, or 3.14, which is the ratio of a circle's circumference to the diameter. And so here in St. Louis Public Schools, and here in the city of St. Louis, I understand we celebrate 314 as our area code. And in the St. Louis Public Schools, we are celebrating and acknowledging the work of our students across the district. So I do want to thank the Office of Institutional Advancement. They are putting together a focus on how we can support students through scholarships and other ways to really strengthen the work that we do here in the district. And that information will be on our website. So thank you very much once again. And I do want to take a moment to just thank Sean Laughlin and George Sells for the power of pre-K. That concludes the interim superintendent's reports. Thank you very much, Board President Davis.
Thank you. If there's no objection, I do want to take public comment out of order before we get to the business, since it's already been a long night. I don't see Mr. Monroe, so the next person on the list is Ms. Carmichael, Shanina Carmichael. Ms. Carmichael? Mr. Asher.
Actually, about public comment, I think it would be best to enfranchise the public if that was done in the beginning, so that members of the public don't have to wait for the entire meeting to then have it. So I appreciate it, Mr. Davis, that you had it a little bit earlier. But first, I want to congratulate the board. Something I don't get to do often. This is the first meeting I've been to in years where the majority of the conversation has been around student achievement and what is happening around student achievement. And I would implore the board to make sure that happens actually every board meeting. This shouldn't be a once in a 2-year, once in a 3-year thing. This should be in every single board meeting. What is happening with academics? What strategy are we utilizing to improve them? And so, round of applause and congratulations. And I think it's appreciated that this took up so much time. I'd like to start with a quote from James Baldwin. If I love you, I have to make you conscious of the things you do not see. And so my comments are out of love. Even though sometimes they're critical because they are for our children. And so we heard a lot tonight about different strategies from different schools. There was confusion between the board and the foundation board, and I think what is missing is some leadership. The board does not seem to prioritize for a school district, like what we are doing, what is going on, or even be aligned with the different entities that are responsible for the education of children. And so my recommendation to the board is for some leadership which really entails some prioritization for really specific things that are known to be true, that you can do across the entire district for the year and focus on and measure and see incremental progress and improvement, which I don't think the board, it seems like you're just doing a lot. People are trying what they can. Principals in the district, the staff are trying. Their hearts are in the right places, but there is no concerted effort or direction or support. And so I believe that needs to change. And similar to what your foundation does, a lot of charter schools in the city are actually trying to incubate new ideas. And so, Ms. Cousins, you asked a lot about what is happening, what are different schools, what are we trying, and so I would implore this board to also remove this, I think, ridiculous moratorium on charter schools when you do not know what the answers are, right? It's very clear from this meeting that you struggle. And I think rightly so. This is we tackle really tough issues, and so rather than saying no charter schools, say, hey, you know, what are some charter schools doing, or what new ideas can we see to actually work together for the betterment of our children? Thank you.
Thank you. That concludes public comment. Oh, I'm sorry. You know what? You were on my list and it disappeared. So I apologize. So come on up, introduce yourself. I apologize.
Good evening. My name is Mariama Hargrove. I'm the academic instructional coach at Long Middle School. Today I'm here to discuss the district's decision to dissolve our relationship with the Verizon Innovative Learning Digital Promise Program. Allow me to give some background. 4 years ago, we applied for the first Verizon Innovative Learning grant. On the first round of the application, Verizon awarded 4 schools a grant worth millions of dollars, but we were subsequently denied opportunity by SLPS's Division of Technology. It was only after Dr. Adams intervened that we were told to reapply for the next year and were subsequently afforded this unparalleled opportunity. When we finally received the grant, we were excited to be one of the 4 schools in SLPS to lead the way in technology innovation. The significance of this award is that the Verizon Innovation Grant provided one-to-one iPad for each student and teacher equipped with data access, eliminating the need for hotspots. More importantly, this occurred in a time when we didn't have one-to-one access. It is also included digital citizenship lesson plans, and most importantly, students will be able to take their iPads home. The impact that the Verizon has had on SLPS is immeasurable, but I'll illuminate just a few key aspects. We have access to transformative education programs called Verizon Innovative Learning with embedded PD for the entire staff and specific PD for the coaches to help our staff embed that PD in their classrooms. They've built and administered STEM-focused programs that create the kinds of transformations that change lives. Increased proficiency in STEM and student engagement. Because of Verizon, we have a student tech team that helps service iPads with students and give PD to parents. The partnership with Verizon has opened doors to other collaborations as well. We have participated in a 2-year contract with ST Math and or offered a partnership with Discovery Education. Each of these collaborations is free of cost to the district. They say imitation is the highest form of flattery. I can tell you how impressive Verizon has been for the 4 schools that we partner with in Digital Promise, but the truth is every school in SLPS has benefited from this collaboration. Natasha Mitchell, the technology liaison for the district, utilized the work of Digital Promise Verizon Innovation Grant, sharing their technology integration matrix to assist us in determining levels of technology integration, the videos, the surveys, the digital citizenship lessons that most of us have adopted were also from the Verizon Digital Promise. Further significance of this grant includes the additional work Verizon completed at Long and will be completing at Gateman. They painted the walls, replaced the flooring and the ceiling, added new electricity, outlets, and all new furniture. It was only after seeing these things that SLPS technology team pitched their own innovative lab modeled after Verizon's. The components of our lab include, but not limited to, we have 4 3D printers. We have robots and modification kits. We have SNAPS electromagnetic kits, a 65-inch television, 30 class virtual reality headsets, Microsoft HoloLens, augmented reality merge cubes, alien gaming computers, Samsung Flipboard, and a host of other things that I could go on and talk about. Verizon has poured millions of dollars into SLPS, and the only thing they ask in return is evidence that students are learning and that teachers are using technology to enhance that education. They are ready and willing to give more. We applied to renew our grant with Verizon for an additional 2 years and received the unexpected response. This is the district's response, and I quote, "After careful consideration, it has been determined that our district, we have the capacity and inventory to support one-on-one iPads with LTE capabilities without the need for an outside organization, providing devices, guidance, and professional learning. It should be noted that our collective experience with VIOS has been valued added for the schools that participated, especially in terms of the professional learning around digital learning, digital citizenship, transformational technology integration. We find ourselves in the same situation that we were a couple years ago when they denied us. If this partner is willing to continue providing the resources, what might be the legitimate reason for a refusal? We have partnerships with other entities. How would this interfere with the district choosing to provide this type of resource and training to other schools not in the grant cohort? If it's true that the district can provide these resources, which is the reason that they gave for denying us the renewal, I asked them, then there is no equity issue. I only ask the model provided by Verizon be allowed to continue. There is no logical reason why we shouldn't be denied access to a free, unfettered resource. Our main concern is that we continue to provide as many high-quality resources as we can to our students uninterrupted. I ask for your consideration in this matter.
Thank you, Ms. Hargrove. And again, I apologize. You disappeared and then I refreshed, you came back. So thank you.
That's
And
good.
thank you all for your patience. I'm going to move back because we skipped approval of the minutes. So I need a motion to approve minutes from February 14th and February 28th, 2023.
I make a motion to approve both minutes.
I'll second. Ms. Henry.
Ms. Hubbard,
Yes.
Ms. Hogan,
Yes.
Ms. Val, Ms. Sonier,
Abstain.
Ms. Jones,
Yes.
Ms. Cousins,
Yes.
Mr. Davis.
Yes.
Motion passed.
Next item of business is the consent agenda. It's somewhat lengthy. Are there items on the consent agenda that members would like to take separately? And we do have a couple of new items that we will take separately. And there's one item that needs to be removed, I believe, Mr. Watson, the fences. Is that right? Okay. Any members want to take items separately? I would like to take 314-2318, so I'll make a motion to approve 314-2301.
Sorry, Matt.
Yes, ma'am.
314-2302.
Okay. Do you have questions, or you want to take it separately?
I have questions. So we can take it separately, whichever one works.
Okay. Well, let's just pass the first one first, so bond counsel can get out of here. So I will make a motion to approve 314-2301.
Second.
Ms. Henry.
Ms. Hubbard,
Yes.
Ms. Hogan,
Yes.
Ms. Sonier,
Yes.
Ms. Jones,
Yes.
Ms. Cousins.
Yes.
Mr. Davis.
Yes.
Motion passed.
I'll make a motion to approve 314-2302.
Second.
Discussion. Ms. Sonier.
Hi, I just had a question. Have we thought about, as far as our financial institutions who we bank with, partnering with community banks, credit unions, things like that?
Well, we are required by statute to have a district bank that we're required to go out to bid for every 5 years. Not to say that we can't have relationships with other institutions. I know that we've been offered different services for the community through different institutions before, so that is possible.
Okay, thank you.
Any further discussion? Ms. Henry.
Ms. Hubbard,
Yes.
Ms. Hogan,
Yes.
Ms. Sonier,
Yes.
Ms. Jones,
Yes.
Ms. Cousins.
Yes.
Mr. Davis.
Yes.
Motion passed.
I'll make a motion to approve 314-2303 through 314-2317,
Second.
and removing 314-2314 for future consideration.
Second.
Any discussion on those items? Mrs. Henry.
Ms. Hubbard,
Yes.
Ms. Hogan,
Yes.
Ms. Sonier,
Yes.
Ms. Jones.
Yes.
Ms. Cousins.
Yes.
Mr. Davis.
Yes.
Motion passed.
I'll make a motion to approve 314-2318 and 314-2319.
Second.
I just want to discuss these again. These are two professional development requests, and we did ask additional questions, and I'm still struggling with these two. I don't really truly even understand what 314-2318 is, a contract with All in All LLC. The explanation was that they provide school supplies and professional development. I tried to do some independent research, and I just don't understand it. And the next one is 314-2319, which was the professional development through Grand Canyon. Again, Ms. Hubbard asked some questions about that, and I'm just really confused about what these organizations are, why they're needed, what they're going to be doing, and especially with the Grand Canyon, what the effectiveness of it is, because it just wasn't provided. So I don't know, Dr. Williams, if there's anybody here that can speak in a little more detail about those.
I'm going to ask Dr. Smith Jr., Deputy of Academics.
Sure, and so I know that written responses were provided from our Director of Professional Development as well as myself, and so any additional questions that you may have that I may be able to answer right now.
So these aren't professional development providers that have responded to an RFP or were to a specific need or specific group. These were two groups that were somehow recommended then to the professional development team. Is that how they came about?
And so if I remember correctly in the information that was provided, and so I wish that Dr. L. Smith was here, but in the comprehensive response that you were provided, it was historical practice, or it was a historical institution that worked with a individual teacher that was going through certification. They went through the Parsons-Blewett. Parsons-Blewett has specific requirements around organizations that they can fund for tuition reimbursement for certification purposes. This particular teacher said at that time, this particular university is really working well. And then probably about 8 years or so ago is when this partnership started. So every year this has come before the board just as a possible resource that supports individuals that want their additional certification requirements. And so we bring this before the board every year.
Okay. Any other questions about these items?
Did you pull a 20, Matt?
We're not 220 yet.
Okay.
No, we're talking about 18 and 19. Any further questions about these items? Ms. Henry?
Ms. Hubbard?
I was going to have a question,
Oh, go ahead.
actually. Do we have any information about what All in All is?
I could get back with you with that. The person that would be able to provide that deep information left the meeting today.
Okay.
Do y'all want to, since you need more information, you want to pull it or you want to vote on it?
Do you want, is this a timely request? Do you want to pull it for?
And we can pull it for consideration.
Okay.
For next time.
Just 18. Any other questions about 19? Okay, I will rescind my motion, and I will make a motion to approve 314-2319. Any further discussion on this item? Ms. Henry?
Ms. Hubbard?
Yes.
Ms. Hogan?
Yes.
Ms. Sonier?
Yes.
Ms. Jones?
Yes.
Ms. Cousins? No. Mr. Davis?
No.
Motion passed.
Next, I would like to make a motion to approve 314-2320 through 314-2336.
Can you pull up 314-2320?
Okay, so I will rescind my motion. I'll make a motion to approve 314-2320. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, discussion.
Yeah, I don't know if there's a typo or something on mine, but it says to provide academic programs for 2 students with exceptional abilities. So is this a typo? Is it supposed to be 2 schools?
It's just 2 students.
Dr. Smith Jr.
This is the PEGS program.
No, sure. And so just to give you some information from our gifted and talented office, so that resolution is for tuition for 2 students, actually, so 2. For the PEGS program, that's our programs for exceptionally gifted with the Lindbergh School District. So currently we have 2 students attending. The tuition is about $12,000, $6,000 per student, and less than 1% of our population is eligible for this PEGS programming. And so students who have an IQ of a certain number, IQ of 140 or higher, are recommended to the actual program. And so it's just an opportunity to provide the resources that they would quote unquote qualify for.
Thank you.
Ms. Hubbard?
Yes.
Ms. Hogan?
Yes.
Ms. Sonier?
Yes.
Ms. Jones?
Yes.
Ms. Cousins? Mr. Davis?
Yes.
Motion passed.
So I would like to I'd like to take separately 314, 23, 37. So between 21 and 37, any other items to be taken separately?
Can I ask a question?
Absolutely. Let's make a motion first, and then you can ask a question. I'll make a motion to approve 314, 2321 through 314, 2336. All right, discussion, Ms. Sharma.
Okay. I have a question for 314, 23, 29 through 314, 23, 26. I just kind of want to understand, like, these are just giving money to a bunch of different organizations. Like, what are they supporting? Yeah.
Excellent questions.
Thank you for the question. These are actually purchasing cooperatives that provide services for various departments and schools throughout the district that have already gone through a request for proposal process and vetted all the vendors that are within the purchasing cooperative, which really saves time so that the district doesn't have to put out all the RFPs because that has already been done. So really, it's just an opportunity for the district to use services that have already been vetted.
Okay, thank you.
Further discussion. Mrs. Henry.
Ms. Hubbard?
Yes.
Ms. Hogan?
Yes.
Ms. Tonier?
Yes.
Ms. Jones?
Yes.
Ms. Cousins? Mr. Davis?
Yes.
Motion passed.
I'd like to make a motion to approve 314, 2337. In discussion, I have a question about these. So this is the renewed contract with Logos, Annie Malone, and Great Circle. I guess my first question is Annie Malone. If we're renewing a contract, but it's my understanding that program is no longer in existence. So does this need to be amended?
That is a good question, and I don't have the exact answer for that. I know that Annie Malone has several different services that they provide. Now, for this specifically, I'm not sure that the program that closed is the one that is up for approval tonight.
Okay.
So these services under this board resolution are for students that have special needs that actually go to school at different locations. So
this isn't the therapeutic program that was running out of Sumner while they were redoing their building. This might be a different program?
I am not sure. So we can certainly pull it and get it back on for next month.
Yeah, when I asked the written questions, it was my understanding they were the same, which is why I didn't understand why we're renewing it. And I just didn't know if this was a carryover from last year.
No.
And it needs to be changed, or do we have time to pull it? Is this urgent?
Yes.
And then my other question is, I'm still concerned about Great Circle, reading about them in the media. I asked this question last year and was assured, no, the controversy was just at the residential program. There have been further indictments and against the organization that was running it. It was clear that it was not just against the residential program, that it was actually Medicaid billing fraud issue. And it also read to me that program has been subsumed by another company. So I'm just, one, curious if you're comfortable with doing business with this organization given their recent track record. And two, I guess, again, is this even written correctly? Because I don't think Great Circle, as it existed before, still exists. I think it's been assumed by another company.
Yeah, thank you. I will certainly go back and work with, I know that finance, I think, put out the RFP for these, but also with special education, which are the students that are served.
Okay. Well, if it's not urgent, then I will withdraw my motion. Next, motion for 314-2338 through 314-2351. Is there a second? Second. Any discussion on these items?
Real quick on 38. So have a contract with a tutoring project to provide tutoring for students in private and parochial schools. Is that just what we're required to do as a public district?
That is a requirement, yes.
Okay, thanks.
Further discussion?
I do have one on 03 14 23 44. Just clarification, I think that's
St. Louis Youth Jobs.
TLU.
Dr. Henning's been here all night waiting for this.
Dr. Henny. Buddy old Dr. Henny. Dr. Henny, I'm just for clarification, this is just continuing the program, not providing additional funds.
Correct. It's not additional funds.
It's just giving them time to submit whatever follow-up reporting that they need to do?
This was the matching funds that came from the city. The city actually requested that they have an extension on the amount of time, and so that's why it came back before the board.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
While you're here, just one question.
Yes.
What with the Learn and Earn program did the foundation pay for? What are they supporting?
Just the, that was our financial literacy training, job readiness training. That, and it was a specific grant that the foundation, somebody came to the foundation and said, we've got this grant.
I think it was Wells Fargo, maybe?
Yeah,
Okay.
that's it. Yep.
All right, thank you. That
Okay,
helps.
thank you.
Further questions about these items? Ms. Henry?
Ms. Hubbard?
Yes.
Ms. Hogan?
Yes.
Ms. Sonier?
Yes.
Ms. Jones?
Yes.
Ms. Cousins? Mr. Davis?
Yes.
Motion passed.
Next, I'd like to make a motion to approve 3/14/2352, the school calendar. Any discussion on this item?
Is this calendar, who does this go to? Dr. Smith, come on down to the Price is Right. Dr. Smith.
You might have earned a cupcake tonight.
There we go, yes.
In regards to this, I'm curious, I know the last time the presentation was done, I had concerns in regards to the number of professional development days, and I know the statement was presented that the union requirement was a minimum of 2 days. Has there been an attempt to go and renegotiate additional professional development days for the staff?
And so I want to clarify that. So I misspoke last time, and so there aren't any days that are called out specifically for classroom prep days. Historical practice has been 2 days. We've been in conversation with union leadership around the change that you see in this particular calendar is that in previous years, right when teachers came back, that first week was district professional development. We've shifted in the recommended calendar that it's going to be school-based for those first 4 days. And so in conversations with our union leadership, being able to call out specifically time that would be allocated in the school day during those first 4 days, where we could guarantee that there's additional time that school principals would allocate when they're in their schools, in addition to those 2 days already, would suffice.
So there has been somewhat a change in the calendar
Well,
to kind of basically reflecting what you've said.
I wouldn't say it changed. Well,
help me out.
No, say that again.
So based on what you've said in
Yes,
your
ma'am.
previous presentation, and speaking with the union, it appears that you guys have come up with an agreement in regards to supporting the principals and the staff in regards to like school professional development or whatever the additional time that they need. The agreement has been kind of set up for them to have that additional time instead of just 2 days.
Well, I would say there's no additional changes to the calendar, so we would still have those 2 days for classroom prep. First week, it would happen on that Friday. The second week, it would happen on that Friday. But the shift that has happened is the first week is going to be a school-based professional learning Monday through Thursday. And because of that, we're going to be talking with school leaders to say, how do you build in time during those first 4 days? Because you're in your schools versus actually being a part of district-wide professional development days to build that in. And so we're still guaranteeing the 2 days, but we're just we'll be asking principals to say, as you're planning your professional development, we know that they have a lot of things that they need to cover, but building in time on that Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday to add additional time as well.
So to be safe, you're saying on the school professional, like the in-school professional development days for the principals, they very well could say, okay, I'm going to carve out 2 hours for you to go, within that first 4 days to be able to go and fix your room up or do whatever else you need to do, and include that as part of the school professional development.
Included as part of the classroom preparation time. So what I want to
Right.
be very clear, so people who
No,
are listening, is that we're not going to mandate or dictate X amount of
Exactly.
time. We're just simply going to work with our network superintendents and principals to say, if you can give a minimum of this time during that first week, that would be in addition to the full classroom prep day on that Friday, and then the second week, that full classroom prep day on that second Friday.
Okay, thank you.
Further questions? Ms. Henry?
Ms. Hubbard?
Yes.
Ms. Hogan?
Yes.
Ms. Sonier?
Yes.
Ms. Jones?
Yes.
Ms. Cousins?
Yes.
Mr. Davis?
Yes.
Motion passed.
I'll make a motion to approve 314-2353 through 314-2356. Any discussion on these items? Ms. Henry? Oh, okay.
55?
Yes, ma'am.
Regarding our bonds, this was an exciting day.
54.
54. I have 55 on mine, but okay. It was an exciting day. We sold some bonds today. So not only is it 314 Day, Pi Day, it's Prop S Day. And what I brought Lorenzo Boyd, Managing Director of Stiefel, to give us just a brief recap of the activities of Prop S Day.
We could have done this at 9 o'clock or 8:30. Thank you for your patience.
Good evening, everyone. As Ms. Banks mentioned, my name is Lorenzo Boyd, Managing Director of Public Finance for Stiefel. Congratulations on the passage of the Prop S bonds back in August of 2022. On today, we sold the bonds of $135 million for the school district. It was a great day, as Ms. Bank mentioned, but we started this process about 6 weeks ago, and through this process, we went through an individual credit score with the school district never had an individual, an underlying rating, I should say, in the past. So the 25 years that I've worked with the school district, they've never had an underlying rating. There are right now about 520 school districts in the state of Missouri. Only 181 have underlying credit scores. So through this process, we went through an extensive process with Standard & Poor's out of Colorado and Texas to get an underlying credit rating for the school district because of the district's financial stability, and the district received a AA- from Standard & Poor's. I'll tell you this, that's in the top 25% of all school districts that are rated in the state. I think that's very good news. And just to kind of give you guys an example, of the 181 school districts in the state that are rated by Standard & Poor's, there are only 15 rated above St. Louis Public Schools, so that was great news. They do that process, an independent rating agency. And so just to kind of give you a reference point of some other school districts that are kind of major urban school districts, Kansas City Public Schools, their underlying credit rating is A+, Indiana Public Schools, A, and Chicago Public Schools, they're below investment grade at BB. And today when we sold those bonds of $135 million, we actually received over $399 million of orders. So that means there was more demand than bonds. So we were able to lower interest rates even further by 2 to 8 basis points in each maturity. So we were able to generate about $147 million in cash that will be delivered to the school district by Stiefel on April 4th. And we asked for your approval. Oh, I'm sorry, and the interest rate was 4.04%, I believe it was. So if you, just to give you some comparison, if you were purchasing a home right now, a $200,000 home, you probably, with an average credit score of 600, you probably would pay around 7%. So we were able to borrow these $135 million at 4.04%. So cheaper than you would if you were buying a home.
Before we vote, Ms. Banks, can you please stand? We never give flowers when they're due. To hear a report that this district has a AA,
A AA-.
AA-, I'm sorry, AA- rating speaks volume of the work that you do. And we need to recognize you for what you do and what you've continued to do for this district, and we thank you for that.
And I don't have flowers, but I do have a cupcake, so I can't give them all away, but you guys get one too.
Thank you.
So thank you. Ms. Henry?
Ms. Hubbard?
Yes.
Ms. Hogan?
Yes.
Ms. Sonier?
Yes.
Ms. Jones?
Yes.
Ms. Cousins?
Yes.
Mr. Davis?
Yes.
Motion passed.
Okay, we have 3 new items, and then we're almost
Ho, ho,
there.
ho.
What?
We accepted 0314-2356?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Next item is a new item, is 314-2357, is to amend the sole source contract with People Are Everything .biz Systems to add support and policy analysis and technical writing to the existing consulting project manager services relating to implementing the citywide plan for schools in St. Louis City for a period of May 2022 through June 2023 at a cost increase of $125,701.47. This is for the citywide plan. This is a change in the contract, and I see Dr. Pollack coming up if he can explain it better than me. But my understanding is that at this point in the contract, there's a need for additional policy support and technical writing. The work has been going on and been going on well, generating a lot of information. But the part of the budget that was lacking, that was realized that there needs to be formalizing this into a policy document, and that needed additional expertise. Am I stating that correctly?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. Does anybody have additional questions about that? Did I move and second that already? All right, I will make a motion to approve 314-2357.
Second.
Any further discussion? Ms. Henry?
Ms. Hubbard?
Yes.
Ms. Hogan?
Yes.
Ms. Sonier?
Yes.
Ms. Jones?
Yes.
Ms. Cousins? Mr. Davis?
Yes.
Motion passed.
I'll make a motion to approve 314-2358 and 314-2359. Any discussion about those items? Ms. Henry?
Ms. Hubbard?
Yes.
Ms. Hogan?
Yes.
Ms. Sonier?
Yes.
Ms. Jones?
Yes.
Ms. Cousins? Mr. Davis?
Yes.
Motion passed.
That concludes the consent agenda. Are there any board member reports or committee reports? Okay, good. Can I get a motion to adjourn?
A motion to adjourn.
Second.
Ms. Henry?
Ms. Sharma?
Yes.
Ms. Alhajri?
Yes.
Ms. Hubbard?
Yes.
Ms. Hogan?
Yes.
Ms. Sonier?
Yes.
Ms. Jones?
Yes.
Ms. Cousins?
Absolutely.